Generally, you said feminism is neutral.
Here's what actually happened.
The foundation of all knowledge.
Money. I'm really mad that
What difference does it make, right? What
Stop. Stop.
the deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
And to lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong.
Yeah,
you're promoting, right?
Ideologies that make that politics, right? This is my ideology.
Yeah, but...
So, 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage? The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, they're dead? Very hard, you said.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah, the Raging Tomato, here bringing to you live another debate. This evening, I have with me, of course, Shaman Omar and Jed from Flying Spaghetti Auditor, back to continue their discussion from the prior debate that Jed was here. I'm really excited for this one. The question of the evening is, does God exist? Shaman, if you'd like to begin with your opening statement, please.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Sarah, for putting this together. Nice to see you again, Jed. My position is I actually have prepared an opener because I wanted to look professional. And in the spirit of being professional, I will also put on my glasses. And I will start off by reading from my book, Jed. I have a book. If you have one, you can read from yours as well. Every advantage is a necessary advantage. And in my book, The Courtesan, there is a writing on page 46. It's called The Knowledge of the One. And it states, knowing that the unknown is known to the one, that is how we know a God exists. And so that's my premise. I can take it from a few different places. Premise one would be something exists. Premise two would be everything is contingent. Everything that exists is contingent upon itself, right? Everything is contingent. The third point would be that contingent things do not explain themselves. The fourth would be that infinite regress does not solve contingency. Therefore, existence requires necessary grounding, right? And so in this debate, I'm glad to see that with Jed, we're going to be having a discussion that's on a higher level. Today, all we see are debates between highly educated atheists, most of which used to hold to a faith, usually one of the Abrahamic faiths. And they at one point went through high-level colleges and advanced degrees, and they put down, a bearded man atop of Mount Olympus as so passé, and then pick up science as their new religion. And within science, I mean all of the sciences, right? Sometimes they go deep into the quantum, but then we're getting into, in essence, the blurring of quantum and metaphysical. And there, I believe we're getting into the concept of God. So we'll leave that alone for a second. Let me actually read something. And on the other side, we have mainly the ortho bros, right? And these guys are usually utilizing Christology and new forms of a language that was created by the Roman Catholic Church over the course of 500 years. Nicene this, homostasis this, homoousios this, homo that. It's very weird. Eating flesh and drinking blood. And they utilize a different language and then try to shun people who didn't spend their time learning those languages, which I don't believe that wins anything either. So before we get into any religious components or any attachments of names that have a history of usually death, murder, suffering, and winners and losers. I would like to just bring it on a higher level. Perhaps the statement of what exists, how do we know it exists, basic ontology, basic epistemology, and axiology to bring it together, right? So let me read now. All right. So this debate tonight, I don't believe is between my explanation and Jed's explanation. I think the debate is between a reality grounded in a necessary sustaining principle that exists parallel throughout and within creation universally, thus an eternal mover, right? Not a first mover, an ever-moving mover that exists. Therefore, existence persists, or a reality suspended upon brute fact, unexplained contingencies, and ultimately incoherence. I believe that a not God, and when I say God, let me clarify. Anytime tonight I say the word God, I'm talking about a supreme creator, not a first mover, an ever-moving mover, that which exists, that all that has ever existed contains within and exists within and exists and persists as creation expands. So if we are going to claim that the universe is eternal, then this force, this beingness that I'm talking about would be that eternal presence. If you believe the universe is not eternal, then it would only exist from within the existence of existence itself. Therefore, from our perception, from a human perspective, would be more eternal than not, right? I'm obviously not reading. Let's see here. Yeah, so I'm not here to defend any God of any single religion. I'm affirming something far more foundational, that existence requires a necessary, continuously active ground of being, right? Not a first push, not an old man in the sky or a genie speaking through fire, but a supreme sustaining reality, an ever-moving eternal source from which all existence derives and is its beingness at every single moment, right? Existence, right? The etymology of the word existence. Because if existence is ongoing, then it is grounding, and it must also be ongoing. So if the universe is eternal, then so too must this force that would be contingent through the existence of the universe. So whatever time period you want to put in the universe, we're putting that in this form that we would call a God. If change exists now, then actuality must be operating now, right? So we're talking about the contingency. I think that's clear. Let's move on here. A lot of stuff about contingency. We'll skip that. Let's see. We'll skip that. Yeah, I don't really like reading. I like to just talk. Skip that. We'll skip that. Yeah. So, okay. Let me just get to this point. I guess my core thesis here. So I would say it's the 5 core pillars, not to be intermingled with the 5 core pillars of Islam, but 5 core pillars, right? Number 1, nothing cannot produce something, right? It's very basic. Absolute nothing has no priority. As a matter of fact, my position I would be taking is that the concept of nothing itself is illogical. So the concept of nothing is illogical, right? That's a claim I'm making. So absolute nothing has no properties, no laws, no potential, and no causal power, right? So if you appeal to quantum physics, quantum fields, laws, or energy, you are no longer talking about nothing. Those are something, right? Whether we're talking theory or law. The second part would be contingent things cannot explain themselves. Things that can fail to exist cannot ultimately explain why existence exists. A chain of dependent things still remains dependent. Where is that source of creation? The third one is infinite regress does not explain anything. An infinite chain of explanations without grounding in something that connects everything together never actually explains anything whatsoever. It's just talk. And adding infinite boxes around things and infinite words to explain the same thing of potentiality, that potentiality I'm describing, the space where there's nothing is filled with infinite potentiality. That potentiality and potential for creation itself is God, right? Is what I'm describing as God. The last, the fourth one is laws. Yeah, so laws describes, they don't create. right? So laws are just descriptions, and as well as, and when I say laws, I'm also going to bundle scientific theory together, because most of the things we're talking about are just theories. They're not in fact laws. There are laws of logic and so on, but something about light speed is a theory, right? So the laws of physics describe behavior. They do not explain why reality exists at all. A mathematical description is not a causal explanation. And the last one is intelligibility requires explanation. Why is reality rationally intelligible at all? The fact that mathematics map onto reality itself is extraordinary, and everything that comes from something that can be used to describe something else has a source. What is the source of all of those things combined? Everything that we've ever discovered, everything that we'll potentially discover in the future. What is the thing that connects everything together, right? So I hope I'm not going to get into this whole thing of like who created God, because again, we're not talking about God from, and Sarah, just let me know about time. We're not talking about God of walking through gardens or can and cannot eat or any of those things. We're talking about something far bigger. And I guess I will just wait and see what Jed has to say.
Okay. Thank you so much, Shaman. We appreciate it. And Jed, over to you. Your opening statement, please.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for hosting, and thank you, Shaman, for agreeing to have the debate. It just so happens I also brought my glasses, so I'm not at a disadvantage. So now I look like I'm smart too. Oh, look at that.
Here we go. Perfect. I'll put mine back on.
All right. I also have a prepared opening statement. So first, a little background on myself. I was a fundamentalist Christian for 20 years. I believed in God wholeheartedly and accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Lord and Savior. Then at age 20, I realized I never had any good reason to believe in God in the first place. So I did what any rational person would do and sought out evidence. If there is a God out there, I want to know. I want my beliefs to match the truth of reality with as much accuracy as possible. After listening to hundreds of theists give their reasons, arguments, and evidence for their gods, I have remained unconvinced in the proposition some God exists. Perhaps tonight my opponent will be able to convince me. I certainly hope so. In tonight's debate, I will be defending the null hypothesis or default position, which is to withhold belief in the claim God exists until sufficient evidence has been presented. That's actually the definition of atheism, by the way, a person who withholds belief or is not convinced that any gods exist. The reason I don't make the positive claim no gods exist is because I don't have sufficient reason to believe that claim is true either. There could be a God out there who created the universe, but is currently hiding from detection. A God who kicks things off and then sits back and watches the universe unravel without getting involved. This deistic God is unfalsifiable, which means it's impossible to prove it doesn't exist. Keep in mind, unfalsifiability is a characteristic of an incredibly weak claim, not a strong one. Any claim worth accepting is one which could be proven wrong. In addition to this deistic creator God, there are many different God claims on offer. But the more characteristics you give to your God, the easier it becomes to falsify. For example, we can be reasonably confident the tri-omni God doesn't exist because its traits are not consistent with the world we find ourselves in. Everyone listening has probably already heard of the problem of suffering. If God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-good, he wouldn't want thinking creatures to experience unnecessary suffering. He would be powerful enough to end suffering, and yet we find ourselves in a world with gratuitous amounts of unnecessary suffering. It gets worse when we consider most of the suffering is the direct result of this God's actions, not merely something he allows through free will. I'm going to butcher some of this pronunciation. Onchocerciasis, or river blindness, is an eye disease caused by Onchocerca volvulus, a microscopic worm that God intentionally created, and he conveniently has transmitted to humans by black flies, which God also created. God also created parasitic brain-eating amoeba, tapeworms, hookworms, roundworms, pinworms, lungworms, liver flukes, lice, ticks, and malaria, not to mention the barbaric, ruthless, and violent system of predation he established as the cornerstone of biology. Billions of organisms can only survive by viciously killing other organisms and eating their flesh, causing fear, pain, suffering, and death to innocent animals. Another reason many God claims fall flat is the issue of divine hiddenness. If an all-powerful God wants a relationship with everyone, then why doesn't he have that? In my 20 years as a Christian, not once did God ever reveal himself, answer any of my prayers, speak to me, or give me any signs or messages that he even exists. At the time, I thought he was answering my prayers, but I later came to realize I was misinterpreting coincidences and assuming God was the explanation for phenomena simply because I didn't know what the real explanation was, which is the argument from ignorance fallacy. I'm not alone. Hundreds of millions of people like myself don't believe in any gods. If there is a God who wants a relationship with every person, then there would be no non-resistant non-believers. For these reasons, we can say with confidence, there is no omnipotent, omnibenevolent God who wants a relationship with all of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jed. Gentlemen, it was these are actually very insightful opening statements. I'm really excited because we're not getting into the typical God as in God. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as a kind reminder, I believe Jed is restreaming. Shaman, are you restreaming as well?
Yeah, I would ruin the whole thing if I learned. I don't even know how to do that.
Fair enough. All right. Well, either way, I know Shaman and Jed are both over on Instagram. Jed's definitely on YouTube, but get over there, like, subscribe, send them your money. I'm sure there's a dono bar somewhere that they have.
Can I stream this on Instagram?
It's a whole other task. Yeah, I'll show you how to do it later.
Please.
I'll show you how to do it later. But yes, of course, send them all of your love. Please feel free to do so. Also, we are going to get through the debate. Then we will move into closing statements, and then we will read and respond to your kind super chats. As a reminder, we will open up the panel for a Q&A session at the end of the debate. So if you do have something to say or ask, you will be allowed to do so later. And then as well, if you want the full gauntlet mode, you have to hit the dono goal between now and then. All right, gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Great. I had a question about your particular God, Shaman.
Sure.
You said you don't believe in the man in the sky daddy from Christianity, for example. So do you think...
No, but I was thinking about, if necessary, if you want me to, I can pick one for you. You said you're ready to debate any God. So I was like, okay, well, I don't hold to any singular of that. But if we need to, for the argument's sake, bring it down, I can start off with Zoroastrian belief of Ahura Mazda.
Well, that's okay. I'm happy to just talk about what you actually believe rather than
sure
some sort of. And I was wondering, do you think God is a thinking agent?
Thinking from the perspective of a singular mind, or thinking from a perspective of observation?
I'm not aware of thinking that doesn't involve a singular mind. What do you mean by observation?
Well, if we take a cosmic mind, it wouldn't actually be confined to any singular space, right?
Now,
so
if we take a cosmic mind, I don't know of any examples of that. How can we do that?
You're not familiar with the cosmic mind concept of the Greeks, like the universal mind?
Well, what I'm asking is, do we have an actual cosmic mind that we can observe?
Well, we can look at the universe.
Okay, but is the universe a mind?
What, is the universe contingent upon itself?
I'm not. So
I'm not trying to deflect. So if the universe is contingent upon itself, and we can observe the universe, and we can observe contingencies through creation, whether it's in the form of a father, a son, and then a child being born, or in the form of how all the good and bad things that you described upon the earth, or the fact that planets make up solar systems, and then we have superclusters, and we can observe all that. And then the question would be, is there a singular source, a cosmic mind that holds all of this creation into its mind? Then I would say yes. But if you're saying that, if we're saying is it confined to a singular brain, like whether it's Zeus or whether it's any of these singular deities that have hands and we have a brain and we have a mind and we have a space and then they have arms and then they have mouths, and we're getting into all that stuff. So I would say no to that if I answered it.
I guess I'm wondering, can God have thoughts of his own? Like, does he have desires? Does he have wishes? Does he think original ideas?
So immediately, as soon as you said his own, you're already,
or its own.
You brought it back down to the.
I shouldn't have.
Yeah, that's that Christian stuff coming through again. 20 years is a long time to be under shackles.
Sure, I'll try to use the word it from now on. I don't want to misgender your God.
No, because when you say he, like him, then we're applying all these human attributes, and as soon as we do that, I understand that's the way the world's thinking. But as soon as we start applying attributes, then we're applying opinion and those things. Like, no, I don't believe God. So when I say God, we're not talking like God lowercase g. We're not talking G capital. We're talking capital God. But I'm talking about the supreme creator. So the reason I said Zoroastrian is let me make a claim about God, right? And then I'll hand it right back to you. So we say Ahura Mazda means the uncreated one, that from which all that exists within and throughout. So it exists through existence itself, and all existence exists within this. Similar to how the cosmic egg concept, right? So the cosmic egg would be the universe, all planets that exist, all planets that ever imploded, exploded, every thought that's ever happened, everything good and bad, is all the yolk inside of the cosmic egg that has still never hatched.
Yeah, the way that you define God sounds to me like the way I define the word cosmos. Everything that exists in the universe, every possible universe in existence. But I'm not sure why we need to apply the God label to the cosmos. I mean, what do we gain from doing that? Because like you said, the God word has a ton of baggage associated with it.
Agreed.
We think of God typically in a a triomni way, but I'm cool with whatever definition of God you want to do. But surely you can empathize with the fact that a lot of people, when they hear the word God, they have a lot of pre-existing ideas behind the word. And one of the key factors to me with the definition of God, and I know I'm in no position to be defining the word, but having thoughts unto itself seems like a very necessary part of what it is to be a God.
Well, that is true from the last, that's true in the last 3,000 years, I would say. But before that, no, that wasn't true. For example, the oldest understanding in Al-Kemet, First Kingdom Egypt, the force that exists that would be the highest form of what we call God, like the necessary grounding force of creation itself, before any personifications, was the Ma'at, right? And so the Ma'at is what we would call like dark matter now. The difference between dark matter and the Ma'at is that Ma'at was able to hold the potentiality in some unseen substance, right? So it was the unlimited potentiality that exists within the Ma'at that allows for light to even be conceived upon it, right? Let me ask you a question. So do you believe, so I'm following your train of thought here. And for example, the one, kind of on a lower level, the monad, but the cosmic mind, the cosmic creator, is usually personified still with having intentions itself. And right after the intention, other than just creation, right? Other than the concept of creation, some say that God created because it wanted to have a reflection to love, right? Well, what's love come from if you're the only thing that exists? I understand your train of thought. Maybe let's bring it down a little bit more. Do you believe you have a soul?
No, I have no reason to believe I have a soul, because everything that we know about human personality and identity can be tied to a physical brain. So when you talk about like a cosmic mind or the mind of the universe or the mind of God, to me, it seems like a very silly and unsubstantiated idea to claim that there's a mind that's disembodied from any physical body. Because even something like a computer relies on physical hardware in order to exist. All of the minds that we can observe and identify exist as a function of a physical brain. So I see no reason to believe that the universe is a mind or has a mind, or that a mind
So-
can't exist without a physical body.
But the universe is physical. The universe is defined as all matter and space.
Well, what reason do we have to believe that the whole universe is a mind?
Well, I mean, you use a computer. So if you take a computer, take a quantum computer, and every little piece is every little thing, and those things are all made of different forms of materials, right? Whether it's rare earth minerals, other coppers, other metals, right? And they all have electricity flowing through them. But if you take that cosmic computer and expand it into our proverbial universe, or even our solar system, every little component of that would be a planet, a star, et cetera, et cetera. And there's your analogy expanded into a cosmic mind, being the parts of the universe that exist as components within that computer.
Sure. But in the case with the computer, we know that it's a mind, you know, in air quotes, because computers aren't really minds.
Sure.
But we know that it's a mind because we can observe its function. So like we can look at the screen, we can see processes going on, we can see software that's being displayed to us. In the case with a human, we know that we have minds because we can articulate thoughts and observe other people expressing thoughts and showcasing emotion. But with the case of the universe, sure, maybe you could say all the planets and whatever, that's the physical matter of the mind. But where's the mind? Where's the observation that there's any thought process or thinking going on?
Well, thinking is a process of a mind, right? When we're talking about like thinking, we're projecting human attributes to it. Perhaps there was just a singular thought, and we are still inside of that singular thought. Not to get biblical, but if you go and you say, just because you mentioned you had a long history of Christianity, but let's say in the beginning, let's go Genesis, to say in the beginning, there was nothing in space, right? And then there was the first word, right? The creation, the first word. Maybe we're still inside of that first word. That first word is still being spoken. So that first thought hasn't been done yet. So we are still inside of that first thought. Therefore, there's no other thought other than the one we're in. We're in a singularity.
I don't see any reason to believe that the origin of the universe needed a thought or that there was some thought behind it. To me, that's a complete non sequitur.
Well, you mentioned thought. You asked me if I believe that the creator, in the form of what we're saying, God, has a thought.
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding, is that the existence of the universe is the thought, and the universe itself is the physical body, so to speak, of the universe's mind or of God's mind.
Well, if we're using thought and we're using computer, I'm just using the questions you asked and it's using the analogy of a computer and all the little pieces inside that none of us most likely even know what they are. I can't tell if you take my computer that I'm using, break it apart. I have absolutely no idea whatsoever how to put it back together. Maybe you do. And also, I've met complicated people that it took me an hour and a half to figure out what the hell they even want to eat for dinner because they can't make decisions, right? When you consolidate all these potentialities and different perceptions, right? So is my perception a thought? Like when I'm looking right now, is my perception of this reality a thought or a series of thoughts?
I would say perception is not necessarily a thought in itself, because a camera can perceive reality, but it's not having any sort of thought. So a thought would be an observation made about the perception.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. So if we're using like the word perception, whether it's me with thoughts perceiving or the camera looking at me and perceiving, we can call that like a mutual reality right now. Right? That's reality.
Yeah, I believe we all share the same reality.
Okay. So we're sharing the same reality right now. You're looking in a camera that's also looking at you. I'm looking in a camera, Sarah's over here looking at something else. Now she's looking at the camera. But there's a common reality between conscious perception and unconscious perception, all being filtered into this one reality, right?
Okay.
No, I'm saying that's what's happening right now. No? I'm trying to tie into what you said. It's not a trap. I'm trying to use what you said. I'm tracking with what you're saying and using your words to go down the line. Okay.
Okay. Well, one thing that you said that kind of confused me was that you said, well, I was talking about the thoughts of God, and then you made a comment to the degree of you're personifying God by saying that he has thoughts. But if if there's no thoughts, what does the mind do besides have thoughts? How do we know, like, what's left?
I would say that when we're saying thoughts, we're still speaking plurally. If at the beginning there was one thought, and that was creation, and at the beginning there was one word, and that's create, let's say, we are still inside of that first thought, and we're still inside that first word being spoken.
How could we differentiate between being inside of a universe that exists as a thought of a God versus one that exists for a natural explanation with no God? How could we tell the difference between those two?
Listen, it sounds to me, it's a bigger miracle to think that everything came from nothing than it is to think it came from something.
That's not what I asked. I didn't say
that. Repeat the question. I'm
sure.
sorry. Repeat.
So how can we tell the difference between living in a universe that's the result of a God having a thought versus a universe that's the result of a naturalistic explanation that we just don't know about, that doesn't require a God?
So one is logical and one is illogical. I believe that there's order through unconnected chaos is illogical. I don't believe it's logical to think that everything is not being created from a singular source, and that singular source is still connecting everything, and there's a contingent factor from the order that we witness. Whether there's chaos within the microscope, which you described, of course there's chaos. We have crazy things going. That's why I mentioned the Zoroastrian concept of God, because I think it explains it actually really well. But yeah, that's the answer.
Well, I'm fine with the idea that there's forces that connect everything within the universe, like the gravitational force, etc. But I see no reason to think that there's a God behind it. And I'm not aware of, like, I'm still not even clear what your definition of God is, or what the attributes of this God are. You said he's a supreme creator, eternal mover, exists and persists in the universe and sustains reality. But I'm still not even sure if you think he's a thinking agent. If you think it's a thinking agent.
Yeah, you're
still not sure if you think
Christian
it
stuff.
is a thinking agent.
So I didn't hear what Jed said. I don't know if you did, but I didn't hear what you said, Jed.
This probably won't be the first time I misgender God, so my apologies in advance. But I'm still not clear as to why call it a God, as opposed to just a force we don't know about.
Well, the force we don't know about would be God on the highest level.
But it's a God who doesn't have ongoing thoughts, and its only thought is creation. It wanted to create the universe, and currently we're inside of that thought. But I see no reason to think that that's true.
Well, I mean, if we're talking about the cosmic, you said that if you quantify God as a cosmic mind, then you accept that. That's what you said, right? Or did I misunderstand you? You mentioned that you said so you would accept a cosmic mind as instead of God, or not accept cosmic mind?
No, I would not accept that there's a cosmic mind, because I see no reason to think that the cosmos is experiencing any thoughts, has any thoughts to itself, is thinking, has ever had a thought, or that the planets are acting as any sort of physical matter within a giant mind or brain.
Well, then where did everything start from?
I have no idea. I don't know, but I think this might be the key difference between our two worldviews, is that when I reach a point where I don't know, I just say I don't know, but you make the assertion that you do know the explanation and it's a God. And to me, that seems like the argument from ignorance fallacy, where just because I don't know what the explanation is doesn't mean I'm justified in making one up because it, helps me sleep at night. I have to just wrestle with the idea that I don't know what the explanation for the universe is, or I don't know why or how everything is contingent. Because like you said, everything is contingent on something. We find an infinite regression if we look at all these things in a row. I don't know if that infinite regression is possible. Maybe infinite regressions are possible. I just don't know. But you say that they're a problem and that God solves it.
No, I didn't say God solves anything, because solve with passing judgments on. You mean solves the problem, solves the dichotomy?
Solves the problem of an infinite regression, or explains the infinite regression.
Okay,
I don't want to misquote you if that's not what you meant.
Well, you said okay, so you're actually the one taking the argument from ignorance, because you're just saying, I don't know, therefore it doesn't exist.
Again, I'm not making the claim that no gods exist. The burden of proof is on the person claiming that a god does exist.
No,
We're
you're
not justified in believing a god exists until there's a sufficient evidence or reason to believe that.
Well, here's where you get into the problem with all your Christians, because they're like, I know Jesus exists. He visited me in my hospital bed. And then how are you going to, you're literally claiming, your literal argument is an argument from ignorance. You're saying, I know that I don't know that God exists, therefore it doesn't exist.
I never made the claim that God doesn't exist.
You're not making the claim that God, then what is your argument?
My argument is I'm not convinced that any gods exist until you present sufficient evidence to warrant belief in that claim.
Okay.
There's the default position.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. But
the default position is to reject both claims. God exists, no gods exist. I'm not accepting either one of those claims until I see sufficient reason to believe it. Now, I think I do have sufficient reason to believe that, say, the Christian or the Muslim God don't exist. But when it comes to a creator God, I don't think we have good enough reason to believe it exists. And I don't think we have good enough reason to believe it definitely doesn't exist.
Okay, so do you have any logical or any explanations for the creation of the universe?
I haven't the slightest idea how the universe came to be. I don't think it was created, because that word carries a bit of baggage. I think that it's possible the universe exists eternally, and it is an infinite regression that goes all the way back in time, because, as you know, the laws of motion say that objects in motion stay in motion, and if we have motion now, then there's a good chance there's always been motion in the past. I don't think that there's anything illogical about a universe that can be traced back indefinitely in some way or another. I mean, our current presentation of the universe has existed for 38 point whatever billion years.
Yeah, I don't believe any of it. They said 13.6 before, and then now it's no, but it doesn't matter, because it was 6 billion when I was in elementary school. It's all bullshit. I don't think we know anything ultimately when it comes to these things. But so the question is that is everything, what grounds? Okay, do you understand the difference between reality and actuality? Like, are those the same thing to you?
Maybe you could explain that. I don't know how.
Like reality. So universe is all matter. My glasses are starting to get hard to pay attention.
Oh, let's switch. I'll put mine on.
Okay. I put my glasses on. I started trying to read. I'm like highly dyslexic.
No, so you should have handed the glasses over the camera and then.
Yeah. So, okay. Let me start using some of my own trains of thought, right? Because I was tapping into what you were asking us about the mind, his thoughts, and all this stuff. And I know you're not trying to necessarily go there. And I'm certainly not trying to ground it into any gender concept, right? I don't believe the concept of a male or female God by itself is literally absolutely stupid. Okay. And
I don't want to burden you with any gender of God. It's a slip up that I'm going to make because I'm so used to talking to people that think God is a male. So I don't care. It's not going to offend me, because I know that we can't offend what I'm talking about as God. Like it doesn't have an opinion. You don't think God is capable of being offended?
No, that's absolutely the dumbest human shit we've ever, not you. That's the dumb human positions. See, because if God can get offended and I'm connected to God, now I can tell you when you're offending God and when you're not. And when you don't listen to me, then you're going to be cast out, right? And if you listen to me, then I can give you special messages, and then you can tell the village people. So that's all. No, that's why I mentioned Ahura Mazda and the Zoroastrian perspective, because they say Ahura Mazda is the uncreated one, right? So the uncreated one. And inside of the creation, we are here, right? And there's good and there's evil. And so through our thoughts, we create, through our words, we create, and through our deeds, we create. We either are moving towards the light through the good, or are moving into the dark, the angrumanu, right? Through our actions, our thoughts, and our deeds. And through that, we accumulate what we would generally refer to as karma. Karma means actions. And at the end of it all, our weight from our good and our bad are weighed in, and we move back into our cosmic karma. Like the Indians would say, after you die, go into the womb of Kali, and all of your good and bad deeds, are measured. All of your actions and inactions are measured against the feather of truth, according to the ancient Egyptians, and it's weighed, and then you materialize through Kali's womb again. But all of that is done through some form of consciousness, and I'm trying to explain, as far as that computer and mind analogy, that we are inside of this creation itself, of which I do believe in spirits, and I believe in forms of deities. Actually, I believe in the original form of the Hebrew Bible, where the Elohim were various spirits, and none of them created the universe, by the way. In Arabic, they're called jinn, which is spirits, right? And so, but there may not be a point in bringing that up because you don't believe you have a soul, which we can go into.
Before we get too sidetracked, I got to respond to some of that stuff you said, because you brought up a lot. You introduced some morality into the discussion. So it almost seemed like you were saying karma and the effects of karma. When we do good, things pile up and are out on our weight against the bad, the evil that we do. And there needs to be a consciousness that sorts out the good and the bad. And I'm not aware that this karmic system exists. So if we're using that as evidence or an argument that a consciousness must exist in order for this karma thing to exist, then my response is this karma thing doesn't exist. I have no reason to believe that there's some consciousness that's sorting out good behaviors versus bad behaviors. And there's also a big problem when and it almost seems like a contradiction with something you said, which is that God doesn't or isn't incapable of getting offended. But then on what criteria is it categorizing actions as good or bad? It seems like you're implying that there's some sort of objective morality out there where there's a good action and a evil action, and these are facts of the universe. And I don't agree with that. I think morality is entirely subjective.
Yeah, that's a worldly claim. That's not a universal. I don't believe that our actions, although there are people that think that, I don't believe that our actions or inactions here on the earth are modifying the movement of planets and solar systems. No, that's absolutely crazy. No, I'm talking about here upon the earth in this third, five sensorial, three-dimensional reality that we are coexisting here upon the earth, that our actions, our thoughts are in the forms of thoughts, deeds, and words do have a weight in the substance that's created through them, even if it's not just in our subconscious memory. And those actions do have a fee to them, or a weight, which is referred to as a karma. So if you don't, you're saying you don't believe in any form of karma whatsoever.
Well, I'm saying I don't think there's any sort of supernatural karma. So I believe that every action or deed that we do, the old saying, what goes around comes around. So if I punch a bunch of people in the face, eventually I'm going to get punched in the face. If I go around spreading hate and bigotry, eventually I'm going to lose all my friends, because if I'm mean to people, people aren't going to want to hang around me. So it's from my perspective, entirely a naturalistic explanation for why doing good, quote unquote, things to people, things that they like, is going to make them be reciprocal and do things that I like in return. But I don't think there's any force within the universe that takes a positive thought and spins it into some sort of positivity in some sort of way that's not directly contingent on the actions of us and the feelings of others.
So we have laws, right? And those laws, cause and effect, are all based off of karma. Karma just means actions, right? And you just described several examples of karma in action, right? And so those actions, for example, punching someone in the face, stealing from someone, et cetera, those emotional, if you were never raised as a Christian and you were just in some random island 1,000 years ago, if you went up and stole someone's child, you would have most likely one of two feelings. One would be excitement and joy, because that we would say that was evil. You're enjoying causing the pain and suffering. Or you would feel some sort of guilt. I don't know about a third emotion, but maybe you can think of one.
Apathy,
you would feel,
perhaps.
Okay, that would go towards the guilt, wouldn't it?
No, just being indifferent, like not caring about it.
Well, there would have to be a cause of why you did it. So you would have to be doing it for a reason, right? So you go and you take
Well, you just switched. You said the cause of why you did it is separate from the emotion you experience because of doing it.
That's true. That's true. The why is just a justification within the mind of an individual. So two people are at war. They're both at war, right? So they're both in the middle of war. One side is saying they're at war because they're defending their home, and the other side is saying that they're at war because they're trying to get a new home or expand their empire, right? The whys are different, right? But the emotion of two different consciousness being in the middle of a war is the binding thing that creates that experience between those two consciousness, correct?
Sure.
Okay. And so there's karma in the form of the actions of what happens during that process, right? So if if you get into a gunfight with someone and you win, there is a lingering effect, right, of that experience. Whether it's just you got shot in the shoulder, there's a wound here. Maybe it takes a while to get your shoulder back. There's the mental experience. That's what we refer to as PTSD. All of that is karma. There's no escaping the concept of karma.
Sure. And when I say I don't believe in karma, what you're describing, I certainly believe in the consequences of actions, but I don't believe that there's some sort of supernatural element to karma where a God is weighing your actions and eventually is going to impose some sort of consequences on you from its own decision making. There's no magical force within the universe that's causing these consequences. It's just the natural consequences of actions.
So you don't think there's any form of magical force from the perspective of, so where does emotions come from?
Emotions come from our brain. So a lot of us have empathy, not everybody, because there's a lot of Christians out there. Just kidding. Most of them have empathy too. But most of our emotions come from us empathizing with other people and recognizing that they're like us. And we feel a visceral reaction when we cause pain and suffering to another person. So if in the past, when I have hurt people, I feel bad afterwards because I'm putting myself in their shoes and recognizing I wouldn't like what I did to them to be done to me. And also there's potentially a negative consequence to my reputation where now people think I'm a bad person because I did this bad thing. So those kind of consequences are entirely natural and based in the mind, which is the product of evolution, but doesn't necessarily have anything to do with magic or any gods.
It has nothing to do with metaphysics.
Well, what do you mean by metaphysics?
Well, I mean, usually the people who are calling themselves atheists don't think they have a soul. They would refer at the extent of their argument would be like metaphysical, like they would tap into slightly metaphysical, whereas metaphysics seems to be the middle ground between the theists and the atheists.
Yeah, can you repeat the question again? Do I think there's anything metaphysical going on?
Yeah. Do you believe in like metaphysical ethics?
You might have to dive more into that. I don't.
No, we can move on. I don't need to. We're not gonna. I don't want to get into too much of that. So
I want to steer us towards the syllogism that you brought up, if that's okay. So you said something exists. Totally agree. That's obvious. Everything that exists is contingent. I'm cool with that. Contingent things do not explain themselves. That seems to be, just tied into the definition of contingent. So I'm cool with that one too. Infinite regressions do not explain contingency. I'm fine with that too, but there seems to be an implication here that infinite regressions are some kind of problem that needs to be solved, or that we can't leave an infinite regression on the table. We have to have some sort of explanation behind it. And then the last one, you were talking fast. I wrote "therefore God," but I know you had something a little bit more intelligibility requires explanation or something like that.
The opener.
Within your opening, the syllogism you brought up, what was the conclusion?
Therefore God, probably. Let me see. Let me find this. Let me see here. So hold on. But so obviously you reject "therefore God." You just agreed with everything that I said.
Well, because the conclusion is a non sequitur, and nowhere in any of the premises does the word God even appear.
Okay. Let me pull up. I understand what you're saying. The conclusion. Here we go. So you said three things. The fourth was infinite regress does not explain.
Right. Infinite
That's
regression
the last
does not
thing you
explain
said?
contingency. Yeah.
So an infinite chain of explanations without grounding never actually explains anything. Infinite chain of cars without explaining the engine. It's like disregarding the engine that's moving it and just talking about cars. When someone brings up, well, how's the car moving? You say, oh, it's a car. Engine is not separate from car. You understand?
Yeah, an engine is a part of a car, but it can be separated from it. So if we have a line of cars, and let's say one car explains the car that's in front of it. Why is this car stopped on the middle of the highway? Because there's a car in front of it. Why is that car stopped? Because there's a car in front of it. There could potentially be cars that go all the way around the entire world. So there's no actual explanation for why there's a backup other than there's just too many cars.
Where did the car come from?
Well, that's a separate question. But if we were to say an infinite regression doesn't explain anything, it doesn't explain the origin or why there's an infinite regression, but the items within the regression, why is this car stopped? Because the car in front of it stopped. We have individual explanations for pieces. We just don't have an explanation for the entire thing. And similarly to the universe, we may not have an explanation for the whole thing. We don't know why the universe exists or how the universe exists or where it came from or if it came from anywhere or if it's existed forever. But I don't think that justifies us in making up an explanation.
Well, that's like the universe may just exist or may just be eternally existing and so on, so on, so on. Got it, right? But just calling it not God is just renaming the mystery.
I'm just leaving it as a mystery. I'm just not naming it. Why name it? The act of naming the mystery is the argument from ignorance fallacy, because I stop at I don't know and you add it's God. But I see no reason to posit the label God on a mystery just because we don't know the explanation.
Yeah, you're naming it not God. It's the exact same argument. You're literally claiming that your entire argument is an argument from ignorance.
I'm not claiming that there is no God. I'm saying I don't know that there's a God. I don't know that there's no God.
Therefore, there's not a God. Well, no, you've been saying all night there's no God.
I never once said therefore there's no God.
No. You in your beginning opener, you said that you made that very clear. But after your opener, since we've been talking the whole time, you're claiming there is no God.
No, I'm not. Those words never came out of my mouth. Rewind the tape.
I didn't say rewind the tape, Sarah. I'm not saying that you specifically said. You're like, well, if this, and how do you know that's from God? Your entire positioning is that there is no God.
No, my position is I'm not convinced that a God exists because it hasn't been sufficiently demonstrated.
So agnostic to it?
I'm an agnostic atheist. That's right. So I don't believe there's a God, but I'm not convinced that there is no God. There could be a God upon which everything is contingent, but I don't know that that's the case. And I don't know for sure that that's not the case until there's sufficient evidence to warrant belief. And the reason I'm not claiming to know for sure that there is no God is because I'm convinced that's an unfalsifiable claim, because there's nothing I could possibly present to falsify the idea that there's a creator God that created the universe and doesn't have an ongoing interaction in any sort of religious sense with his creation, its creation. So it's, it's
existence.
An unfalsifiable claim.
That okay, right. Everything you just said and the chain, so to speak, is existence itself. That's what that's where I'm going. So everything you just said right there, now you're going down to the rabbit hole. That's where it's like God, not God, from a theological Abrahamic perspective, which I understand fully. I understand. My point is that the contingent, the grounded contingent factor in existence itself is the fact that existence is occurring and that it's ever changing, yet there's still a chain of existence that has permeated through time and space. That factor, that force is what I'm referring to as God. That the fact that everything, like you're calling God unknowable, right? But you're
I didn't say
confidently
that either.
You didn't say it's not unknowable.
I didn't say God is not knowable, because I think there could be a way to demonstrate a God exists. I don't know what it is, but I'm not convinced that it's impossible to know there is a God. I said it's impossible to prove that no gods exist.
But you seem to be very confident to know that it doesn't need to exist.
I see no reason to believe that it needs to exist.
Therefore, you're confidently saying that it does not have to. So then how is everything grounded? And how is everything that's contingent? We agreed, I think, on 3 points of the syllogism, which I just found. I can read the other two if you want. Maybe you can
sure. Go ahead.
Pick that apart. But okay, let me see here.
Yeah, right after infinite regressions do not explain contingency. What comes after that?
Yeah. I was in an Uber when I was speaking that into my phone. I was abbreviating. Okay. Laws describe, they do not create. The laws of physics describe behavior. They do not explain why reality exists at all. A mathematical description is not a causal explanation.
Yeah, I'm fine with that one. Yeah,
I don't know why I was pinning to you science is, like your religion was science. I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of theists, and well, I mean, I don't want to burden you with stuff that's irrelevant, but a lot of people a lot of people mistake descriptive laws with prescriptive laws. And I'm happy that it seems like you've made the distinction and recognition that the laws of physics and the laws of logic are descriptive. We're describing how the universe works.
Yes.
These aren't rules imposed on the universe by a mind or a God.
Yes. I think that's great. Self-explanatory, but for some reason it's not for a lot of people. So we agree there for sure. I don't know why I was projecting that onto you. I think it's just like the way you're saying he with God and thinking I was going to come with some,
just a habit of mine.
My God has a, okay. So intelligibility requires explanation. That's a good one. Why is reality rational and intelligible at all? Like, what is the factor that we are even able to perceive and both perceive something that exists, and then even go into the concept of why, how, etc., and even have the ability to make something up other than the mind, because whether we observe it or not, things still exist and still have been created. And so I guess it's more of like, I don't know, it's a little bit going into the science stuff. It says, why is the fact that mathematics maps onto reality itself. But again, you're not going with such a deep science. But so I don't want to burden you with the science stuff either.
Sure. Well, one thing that seems, I don't want to say this in a derogatory way because I'm no expert, but it seems sloppy that you have a question within one of the premises, because a question isn't an argument. It's just an open-ended question. So if we say, what is the source that connects all of reality together? I don't know, but my lack of an explanation, like we've talked about, the argument from ignorance fallacy is not a justification for belief. So a question is not an argument, but maybe there's a way that you could rephrase usually questions used as arguments can be reformed into an argument if they're turned into a statement. So maybe it would make more sense and be easier to follow if instead of asking a question, you presented it as a statement or argument.
So what's the explanation for like existence?
Right, that's still a question. But like if it's in a syllogism, it can't be a question.
Yeah, that's the second. The syllogism actually, here we go. That was the syllogism. Okay, that wasn't the syllogism. I'm sorry. That was my notes on my syllogism. 1, something exists. 2, contingent things exist. 3, contingent things do not explain themselves. 4, infinite regress does not solve contingency. 5, therefore existence requires necessary grounding. That was the actual syllogism.
Got it. Yeah.
Sorry, the last thing was my, I have something for you. Maybe you can answer this for me, because I actually, so this is from the book, The Khorasan as well. It's called The Science of Existence. You are a series of complex systems, from the digestive system to your nervous system. Science has shown us the functionality of many things within the body, yet no one has ever been able to explain the creation itself. How can you really expect to understand the intention of the creator from the perspective of that which is created?
Well, from your own perspective, adding intentions to a creator may be personification. So if God is incapable of being offended, maybe it's incapable of having intentions.
So I think it would be like, so from my worldview, it's extremely, and it's hard to, it's a challenge, but once you grab onto this, it actually makes things a lot more calm. I think that prescribing intentions and, prescribing intentions of creation itself is like a little baby that wants to, it's like a childish thing. The fact is that creation exists, whether we're looking at it from this form, this piece of creation here, with all these different functionalities within this. This is enough to figure out how to learn, right? But then when we look out and we see this creation upon this wild earth and other people that are sharing similar things, and then we can span out and look up at the sun and the moon, I think that the understanding that a creation exists and that it is all interconnected, it is all contingent upon another thing, and that eventually something has to have been the source of all things coming from something. But more importantly than that, more important than the first creation is the creator that exists through the existence itself, all at the same time. That is all I need to know that a supreme form of the word, we're using the word God because we're using English, bro. Every time I say God, I understand I'm bringing the conversation down a few notches. But that's how I know that a God exists.
When you say that you're a creation, or you look up at the sky and that's a creation, you're begging the question, because we don't get to call it a creation until we can demonstrate that there has been a creation or that there is a creator. What we can say is that I exist as a person. I'm a human being. I'm an animal. I live on a giant rock flying through space, and I look up in the sky and I see other planets and stars and giant balls of gas. But I see no reason to believe that someone or some kind of God is responsible for holding everything together. I agree that everything is contingent on something else. And when we get to the conclusion of your syllogism, therefore existence requires necessary grounding, my next question is, okay, what's the necessary grounding? We're not justified in calling that God until there's been some sort of sufficient justification that there is a God. And I'll come back to the fact, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it seems like the God label has so much baggage because so many people associate it with a personification and identity, someone who has thoughts and desires and intentions.
That's their problem. That's the problem.
But why call it God? If you're talking about something different,
because we're using English. That's the problem. Like for example, I'm an ayahuasquero, right? We were using English, so you say shaman, right? So shaman, there's no word in the Amazon for shaman. There's different variations of that. The word shaman comes from Siberia, but in English, that's the word for that role, right? So it's etymology. We're just using English. I mean, when we're saying God, there's people that are calling themselves God, right? And then there's people saying Jesus was God. And when they're saying Jesus is God, they're saying Jesus is a part of the God that created the entire universe, but then at the same time spoke to a guy in a bush. So Jesus was also the bush that spoke to Moses. Jesus also created Adam, but then came back and created himself to die for himself because we sinned against him. So he killed himself, right? So
yeah, I agree. It's all ridiculous.
I understand the slippery slope of the concept here, but there's a bigger picture here. So it's like you said, oh, all these things, you said, oh, I'm here. And then, okay, but then you came from your mom and your dad. And then where did they come from? Mom and dad, right? But everything that you mentioned to disprove my point, not only have all been created, but we know how to point that they got created. We know what we say we know, science of how old the sun is, how old the earth is, how old you are. Everything that you name came from somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with the idea that everything comes from somewhere and that everything is contingent on something else. But where you lose me is that therefore existence requires a necessary grounding, and that grounding is God. I see no justification to call it God. I mean, I'm happy to leave it as a mystery. I don't feel the need to assert knowledge about something that I have no business making knowledge assertions about.
So in your highest understanding of the word God would be the great mystery.
Well, we already have a word for that. It's just mystery. I don't want to use the God label because it carries so much baggage.
Yeah, you're scarred. You're scarred from it. And
if someone says I believe in God, my thought, I mean, the majority of people who use that word are using the word to describe a thinking agent, a he, a dude who created the universe and has an ongoing relationship with his creation.
And I'm hoping we fix that.
Yeah,
tonight.
but if you're
I'm hoping
using
this
the
is
word in a completely different way that just means a mysterious force that holds the universe together, then I'm happy to just call that a mysterious force that holds the universe together. I don't think there needs to be any sort of God label. And I think it almost sounds like you're an atheist because you don't believe that God is a thinking agent. You just believe that God is a mysterious force. So, like you said at the beginning, it almost seems like we agree on more than we might have thought at the beginning.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm an atheist because because through my experiences in life and my direct experiences on my path during the course of my life, like I have witnessed and seen too many coincidences, too many different transcendental experiences and things that connect on such a high level through my perception, of course, processed through my mind, through whether my eyes open or eyes closed, that it's just it's just a little, eventually and inevitably, you cannot just keep thinking that this has to do with the mind, right? Eventually, we're going to have to get past the human mind. Have you ever, sorry.
I just want to understand. You're saying you've experienced a series of events that's so beyond the realm of coincidence that it couldn't have been a coincidence and there needed to be a God manipulating reality in order to impose certain experiences on you. Is that what you're saying?
No, not a God manipulating reality. That's still Garden of Eden stuff. I'm saying,
what is God's active role in forming these coincidences in your life?
Existence. Existence. Very simple. Existence, the contingency of existence itself in its entirety, in its totality. It's, if you were to implode or explode the entire universe, if the dark matter, this invisible, unknown, jello-like substance that exists through the universe, right, that must exist, otherwise gravity dictates the whole universe would implode or explode in a millisecond, right? This is like the concept of the dark matter, which is the ma'at. If you were to remove this ma'at from there and the entire universe would implode in a millisecond, what would exist?
I don't know.
Well, it would either be nothing or something.
I'm confused because
it's a thought experiment. Either nothing would exist, the entire universe implodes because of gravity, right? Magnets, everything would implode in a second, right?
A singularity, perhaps? Back to the singularity?
So what would have to be left? It would be one of two things: something or nothing.
Sure,
I say
the idea that if everything in the universe imploded, we would possibly have something left,
and that something would be
a singularity.
God.
Why call it God? You're basically just saying the entire cosmos is God.
I'm trying. Okay,
that's pantheism.
No, that's another silly little label.
Well,
because pantheism has doors and borders.
I want to get back to something earlier because I was asking about.
But you're bypassing you're bypassing. If the entire universe implodes, all matter and space, this dark matter, dark matter is removed. The ma'at is removed. Everything implodes. The entire universe implodes to this singularity as you described. Either something would still exist or nothing, no thing would exist. An atheist would have to take the possibility that no thing exists and weigh at least 51% no thing as opposed to something. My something is God. That's what we're using the word God. If you say nothing would exist, my claim is that nothing existing is incoherent. There is no such thing as nothing.
Yeah, in your example, I'm not sure why anyone would say that nothing would exist if the whole universe imploded. If we take all the matter and energy in the entire cosmos and removed dark matter and everything imploded on itself, I see no reason to believe that nothing would be left over. It seems to me reasonable to say that all the matter and energy in the universe would just be condensed into one point, which we call the singularity. But to call that God is basically to say the cosmos minus dark matter equals God. And I'm not sure that follows at all. We're just calling the cosmos God. But why not?
Because
because
the cosmos would not exist. The cosmos, being all matter and space in the universe, would be brought down to the singularity of which you eloquently described as all the energy would be condensed into a singularity, right? And so then there would be something that exists, right? And if I call that God, fine, I called that God. And then if that thing be within the mystery would expand itself again, we don't know why, we don't know thought, we don't know words, any of this bullshit, it would expand again. And maybe seconds later or billions of years later, you and I are here having this exact conversation, arguing God, no God, when we just explained right now in a singularity perspective, that infinite potentiality of creation itself is what I'm describing as God. And we have the ability to experience this in all of and then I can dive it into like to move to the soul if that's necessary.
Sure. I just don't see any reason to call the singularity God, because it's all we have is just matter and energy of the universe condensed into a point. And what it almost sounds like you're describing is the origin of the local presentation of the universe we have now, the Big Bang, where we had a singularity and then everything started rapidly expanding. That doesn't mean that it started with a God or that the potential for a universe is a God. I see no reason to label any of the stuff involved with the Big Bang or the cosmos being condensed into a singularity God.
Yes, but now, yes, but you're naming a bunch of science and then saying it's defining itself. Like you're saying like, oh, well, then physics, and then we have all these different ways to explain how we got here. Right. But when you strip all that away and bring it back to the singularity of and you limited it to energy and right. And I said energy and potentiality.
I said energy and matter. I'm not trying to limit it. I'm not aware.
No, there wouldn't be matter though, but there wouldn't necessarily be matter as we all matter in space, like particles. Particles would not exist. The implosion of the universe. So matter would ultimately go down to atoms and particles would not exist within the singularity. It would be pure energy. There would be no matter in any form. Gases, I don't even know if gases would survive a singularity. I'm sure someone's looked into this.
Well, matter
but there would
and
be
energy,
for sure energy. There would be energy for sure.
Yeah, matter and energy can't be created or destroyed. So if we were to condense everything to a point, maybe all of the matter would just be transformed into energy. And so then all we'd be left with is a singularity of extreme potential energy.
Well, matter can't be destroyed. Are you sure about that?
Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. That's one of the laws of thermodynamics.
Okay, energy cannot be destroyed for sure, but I don't believe matter can't be destroyed.
Matter can't be destroyed either. Matter can be turned into energy, and energy can be turned into matter, but matter and energy as a cohesive unit cannot be created or destroyed.
So an ice cube, we take water, matter, and we make an ice cube matter, and then we put it on the fire and steam, and that steam goes where?
Into the air. It's still matter. Steam is matter. They're just particles. Then
it disappears.
It doesn't disappear. It just becomes steam. You can take, and I'm not aware that steam is energy per se, but
yeah, I think you're wrong. I don't necessarily matter. It says matter can be destroyed, while classic chemistry relies on the conservation of mass. Modern physics proves that mass and energy are interchangeable. Matter is regularly converted into energy, and energy converts back into new matter. So yeah, the matter can be destroyed.
Yeah,
it converts to energy, which therefore it's energy. It's not matter.
What I'm talking about is the law of conservation of energy. Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. They can only be transformed or transferred from one form to another.
No, that's only energy, because
it's impossible to destroy matter. All you're doing is turning it into energy. So like if I burn,
therefore it's not matter.
Well, it's not matter anymore, but you didn't destroy it. You just transformed it. There's a difference between destroying something and transforming it. So like when you burn a log, you set it on fire, it turns into energy. It becomes heat. So you're left with a little pile of soot, which is way smaller than the log was at first. So it seems like you're losing matter, which you kind of are. But all you're doing is turning the matter into heat, because the fire produces heat, which is energy, which is then dispersed into the atmosphere. So you're not losing matter. You're not destroying matter.
This is foundational. This is foundational alchemy. It is transmutation. The matter that's gone is gone.
Alchemy is not real.
Yeah. Okay.
This is basic.
Alchemy is not real.
Of energy.
Okay.
Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed.
Okay. We've already. So you already said. So yes, matter can be destroyed. It converts to energy, therefore it's not matter.
Matter cannot be destroyed. It can be transformed into energy.
Okay. Yes. So now we're getting. So if my human body, if I die, right? Do I weigh the same amount as when I die, or do we lose a couple of ounces? When you die, you lose some weight, correct?
You might actually gain weight because I'm pretty sure corpses expand with gases.
Okay. So if I die and my body is burned, where's the matter?
Some of it's turned into heat. It's transformed into energy, but you haven't destroyed anything.
Okay.
The net amount of matter and energy in the universe is consistent. You can't create or destroy. Consider matter and energy kind of like the same thing. They can switch from one to the other.
That's my argument. No, that's my point. They're not the same thing.
Well, they're not the same thing, but they can transform from one to the other. Energy can turn back
matter
into
and energy
matter.
the same thing. I said they're not the same thing. You're like, well, I know they're kind of the same thing, but they're not the same thing. They're not the same thing. Matter can be destroyed and converted into energy, and when it's energy, it's no longer matter, and then that energy can convert into matter later.
When you say it can be destroyed and converted into energy, you're contradicting yourself, because if you're converting it into energy, you're not destroying it. You're not losing anything. Because all you're
losing matter. You're losing mass, which is matter.
You're not losing it. You're just transforming it. I think we're getting hung up on semantics.
You're definitely losing it, because that matter, if I burn a log that you mentioned, that's a kilogram, and after the ashes are 4 ounces, you have lost matter. And that energy that you're describing, you're saying it's transmutation, right? And by the way, the definition of alchemy is a separation of spirit from matter, and spirit is essence. If you don't believe in the soul, then there's no point in talking about that. But you could describe this essence as the part of the energy that continues to exist. That's like the early form of it, a definition of alchemy. So the energy that exists from there, between the energy that you're describing, which we both agree that energy does not get destroyed. We agree on that one. But from the matter that's getting burned, the energy is being released, and the matter that's left, you can't put it all back together into one matter. Therefore, matter can be destroyed, even in percentages.
You just said energy cannot be destroyed, but energy can be converted back into matter in the same way that matter can be converted into energy.
Yes.
So if you're saying matter can't be destroyed, or sorry, you said matter can be destroyed when it's turned into energy, but you also said that energy cannot be destroyed when it's turned into matter.
No, I said matter can be destroyed and can convert not entirely one-to-one into energy. Therefore, matter can be destroyed.
It is one-to-one. It's a one-to-one ratio. There's always the same amount of matter and energy in the universe.
So I've just looked it up in 4 different places. Can matter be destroyed? And the answer is yes. So
I don't know what you're looking up. Look up the conservation of energy.
Energy can be transformed, not destroyed. Matter can be destroyed.
Matter can be neither created nor destroyed. Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed.
I think you're putting too much energy into Einstein's E equals MC squared. Didn't that get debunked?
I think you're putting too much emphasis into alchemy, which is pseudoscience. But I want to get off of this track.
Why? Because
it seems
it's heretical?
like it's irrelevant to the concept of God.
Is it heretical?
I want to get back into something that you mentioned earlier, the coincidences thing. Because when I was asking about,
well, I don't think it's irrelevant. I think it's actually part of my thesis. This entire concept of what we're talking about shows that whether you or I know how exactly it works, and we're arguing, and maybe 1,000 years ago neither exists, and today both are the same, and in the future they say it's all just particles, and the argument goes, but the consistency of the existence and transmutation of things within existence itself is the mystery of what I'm referring to as God. So I think it's actually, we can move forward, but
sure. Well, and like I said, I see no reason to call a mystery God. I'm happy to just leave it as a mystery. But I want to get back to something I asked you that it seemed like you didn't answer, which was that when you said that you didn't, I'm paraphrasing, but you've experienced or seen a demonstration of God in your own life because there was a series of, I know those exact words didn't come out.
I didn't say the word God.
there was a series of coincidences in your life which were too extraordinary to be an actual coincidence. And you said God is responsible in some way. And I was wondering how you, or what God's role is, or how you know that that's the case. And then we went from the narrow and specific and talking about your life into the broad generalizations about the entire cosmos. So I wanted to bring it back to your experience, if we could, and what was God's role, or how do you know that it couldn't have been a coincidence?
I think you're having flashbacks of previous debates. I never one time said I've met God or experienced God.
Well, I know you didn't say you met him.
Yeah.
You said you had a series of experiences which were too unlikely to be coincidences.
Okay.
Does that ring a bell at all?
I said I've had many transcendental experiences in many variations and forms and different experiences that are so profound that there's no way that my mind could have conceived of this concept. Therefore, I know that other more conscious forces that are unseen exist within the reality and the framework of what we call reality on this earth. And so when I say reality on this earth, I'm referring to our five sensorial, three-dimensional perception of reality. I've witnessed things that are beyond comprehension that I couldn't have conceived of myself. And by the way, I don't have any programming, so I don't have like, I don't have like angels, winged angel programming. I don't have Islamic heaven programming. I don't have any of the monotheistic Abrahamic programmings so I've never had a winged angel experience or any of that stuff. And maybe if I was raised as a Christian, I would have had those. I don't know. And then I'd be the big Christian preacher. I don't know. But
thank you for the clarification. I appreciate that, because I don't want to misrepresent what you said.
Yeah, no, I've never said I met God and he said this.
Right.
That would defeat the whole. Yeah.
Now, when it comes to these experiences, they sound kind of similar to what some people might describe as a spiritual experience, or maybe a DMT trip. So it's an experience that you feel as though your mind could not have had on its own. So there had to be some sort of external influence on you by God or some sort of mysterious force. Am I understanding that right? Okay.
With shamanic medicines and not in shamanic medicines, in coma, in a coma, for example, with revolving around a head injury. Sure.
Now, how did you reach the conclusion that those experiences were impossible for your brain to have through strictly physical means?
Yeah. How did I come to the conclusion that it was impossible for my brain to conceive of those images and visions on its own?
Right.
I told you.
Well, it seemed like you made the assertion that that's the case, but I never heard a demonstration that your brain. How did you rule out that your brain? Were you on some sort of substance? Like,
depends.
Some kind of drug?
Well, not drugs, but as an ayahuasquero for over 12 years. I mean, I lived in the Amazon for 3.5 years. So we're talking about shamanic medicines. We're also talking about 2 comas I've been in. Both were profound.
But these were experiences induced by some sort of substance, right?
I've named 2 different variations.
Right.
One is with using shamanic medicines or transcendental breath work, for example. And another, on the other side of that coin, is getting headbutted in a wrestling match and being in a coma for 2.5 days.
Sure.
So one is a substance and one is not a substance.
Right. So in the case of the substance, the explanation is that you ingested a substance. So it wasn't your brain having this experience on its own. It was that you ingested some sort of chemical into your bloodstream, which went into your brain and affected your perception of reality in a pretty extreme way. And this is repeatable. A lot of people have done that, as you know. Now,
that doesn't explain. But that doesn't explain. That doesn't explain my claim.
That it's impossible.
My claim is that it's impossible. I'm saying that I've had experiences that it is inconceivable for me to have conceived through my own brain. And you said, well, how do you know that? Well, I'm the one making the statement. I'm the one making the statement about my own brain. How do I know? Because I made the claim. I know because I said so.
I'm happy to accept that you had the experiences. What I'm wondering, you've made a conclusion. You've made a
statement,
or you've made a claim about the origin, the reason behind these experiences.
About the potentiality of my own brain.
Well, that's what I'm calling into question, because I'm happy to accept that you had these experiences and that you accurately remember what they were like, but I'm skeptical about your
claim about my own brain,
speculation about the origin of these experiences.
You're skeptical about the claim that I'm making about the potential of my own brain? That's interesting.
Right, exactly. How do you, I mean, brains are incredibly powerful things. Brains
So
can make up false memories. You can coach brains in order to make up false memories.
So you want to argue that perhaps I don't understand my own brain to the perspective that, in fact, visions of this or visions of that I've experienced was in fact just singularly chemical in brain?
Well, I'm saying that brains are not fully understood and they're capable of all sorts of things that you and I may not fully understand. I mean, every night we have dreams, which are incredibly realistic hallucinations, for lack of a better word, but experiences that our minds form and give us. They seem like reality when we're experiencing them. Then we wake up and we realize it was all a fabrication. So our minds are incredibly powerful in creating these experiences. And it seems like a lot of what you're talking about could be attributed to a dream-like experience. So I don't see any reason to think that that's impossible for your brain to do, especially if we introduce a foreign chemical into your bloodstream, into your brain, or some sort of impact that can cause crazy hallucinations. We know that people see stars. I've seen stars when I get hit in my head too hard. People will get passed out when they get hit in the head. They have all sorts of brain issues, trouble remembering things. So the brain is an incredibly malleable substance and can be manipulated through physical means. But I don't see any reason to believe that that has to be the only explanation for your experiences is a god or some kind of supernatural or magical explanation.
So can the brain conceive of something that it has never experienced?
Yes.
Really? Name something.
Yeah. So I had a dream of a talking dog, and I've never experienced a talking dog before.
Have you seen anyone talk?
I've seen people talk, yeah. And
have you seen a dog before? Okay,
sure.
So there you go. There we go. There was the answer.
Okay, yeah. Our brains are incredibly
answer.
great at taking different things and combining them together in weird ways.
So I'll give you an example. So you get headbutted in a wrestling match, right? You blink, you see the lights and you blink. And the next thing you know, you're in an ambulance, blink. And the next thing you know, you're like a security camera looking down at your own body for 2.5 days. Explain that one.
That's pretty weird. Yeah, head trauma can have incredibly weird effects on people's memory and perception. And
but how does the brain, how does the brain, like as if there's a bed, right? There's a bed, and as if you are a security camera at the other end of the room looking down onto yourself. You can zoom in on the tags on the doctors for days. And when someone comes back, they're able to tell everybody every single word that was said the entire time. And at night when it's dark and the beep and you're still looking and watching. Explain how the brain can do that.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable experience. It kind of reminds me.
This is why I know of this. This is why I know of the soul. This is why I understand that I'm not.
Let me answer. It kind of sounds like the way that some cars have overview cameras. You know, like you look at a car and you can see a bird's eye view of the car in real time, and you see real objects going around the car. You can see your driveway in real time from a bird's eye view. Now, there's not actually a camera hovering above your car looking down. What you're seeing is real cameras that surround your car looking at the actual reality around you, and you're seeing a artificially generated image of the top of the car by the software within that car's programming. So similarly, my explanation, my speculation on your experience would be that your mind is hearing, and if your eyes are open, potentially seeing the room around you, and that your mind is reinterpreting the visualization instead of seeing from a first person, a POV perspective. It's artificially creating this perspective where you think you're looking at yourself. And the image of your own body could very well be partially manipulated by your mind and generated through like fabrication. Like it's not real. You're not really looking at your body. If I look down, I can see almost all of my body except my head. And so all your brain has to do is fabricate an image of your own face, which what it looks like because you look at yourself every day in the mirror for your whole life. And so your brain is able to fabricate this image and this reality that you think you're experiencing, where you're looking at yourself as a third person camera, but in reality, it's just a generated image within your own mind.
Eloquently laid out, but as we saw your face gradually turning more and more red, you don't believe at all that's the explanation of what I described. What I described to you, you described multiple cameras surrounding a car.
Yeah.
You're trying to describe the fish lens, but there's no fish lens in the eye. You're describing the fact that maybe I drew from the memory of the hospital room that I was not in, that I was unconscious in a wrestling mat, in a wrestling room in a high school, was transported to a hospital I've never been to before, in a room I've never been to before, seeing doctors I've never met to before, completely unconscious, brain asleep, right? In a coma for days. You're describing a bunch of material things to describe the unexplainable. See, right there, I described the mystery, and I'm okay with that being a mystery, but you went forward and spent 5 minutes and 10 seconds describing explanations for the mystery. So you're not okay with just saying it's the mystery.
Well, what I was doing was offering a potential explanation, and you've also asserted an explanation, which is that this is evidence of God or some kind of fabric that holds the universe together.
That's the problem. No. I said specifically, and if I change it, please call me out. I said, I have experienced many things, what we would call transcendental experiences over the course of my life through direct experiences, which I clarified with medicines, not with medicines, etc. I did say that. I said that gives me more than enough explanation and understanding that my mind, I've simply experienced things that my mind could not have conceived of. And you went on, and I gave you an example. You said, okay, these are consuming chemicals. Okay. Then I gave you an example of not consuming chemicals. And you went on to talk about multiple camera angles around a car. You skipped the satellite part, drawing from subconscious memory recall. None of that sticks.
How do you know how do you know my explanation's impossible?
Because how would I draw a memory of a place I've never been to before? How would I see you in a place that I was brought unconscious?
Actually in a hospital? This was completely fabricated from your mind?
What are you talking about? I was unconscious in a wrestling match. I was transported in a ambulance to a hospital where I remained unconscious for 2.5 days. Where am I drawing the memory from? When I'm inside of the MRI scan, I'm conscious looking at myself. There's like a camera following me everywhere. This is at 17 years old. This is a legitimate experience. And again, I'm not saying because of that God, because if I was a Christian, I'd say, gee, I understand where it goes with the slippery slope. I'm simply describing this as an example of a singular experience that I have directly had, that I have no explanation for within the confines of my mind, that led me to the understandings of there is something other, which we've both agreed to as the mystery. And I just simply think that the mystery is much deeper and more grand than we are giving it credit for. And that collective thing, right, beyond again, now we're getting into the soul component of it. So my explanation of that would be that I transcended my body, and that I was conscious, connected to my body but that my soul was practically, out of my body, because I don't have any other explanation for what I witnessed.
Right. Well, what you just did is the argument from ignorance fallacy. You say, I don't know what the explanation is. I don't have a materialistic explanation. So I'm going to assume this one, where my soul is disembodied from my body and actually seeing what's going on.
That would be the explanation. That's called a spiritual experience.
A possibility.
Yes, that was a spiritual. Your possibility experience.
Here's another possibility I'd love to offer.
Much, dude.
A lot of times when we go into comas and wake up, our minds can fabricate a memory after the fact. So your brain fills in the gaps of what it thinks should have happened while you were out. So it could be while you think these were memories, it was actually a fake memories that your brain built during the coma. And we know that happens. I'm not saying that's the case with you.
I told the doctors what they were saying.
And the fact that we don't know what the materialistic explanation is does not mean we're justified in making up an explanation or assuming that a materialistic explanation is impossible. I don't know what the explanation is. I agree that it's pretty mysterious, But the human brain is an incredibly mysterious organ, and there's a lot of function that goes on with the mind, especially when it's introduced to substances and collision and impact and damage.
These are different. These are different
understanding
decades. One's at 17 years old, and one's at 32 years old. They're decades in between time.
Yeah, it could.
There
happen
is no
when
explanation.
When you're
there is
69
no
years old, the age you are doesn't make a difference.
There is
My
no
point
explanation
is that the brain
to what
is
I
an
described.
incredibly mysterious organ, and you're assuming that because you don't know what the materialistic explanation is, that there isn't one, and that you were a disembodied soul floating above your bed. And I'm saying you're not justified in claiming that simply because you don't know what the natural explanation is.
So near-death experiences actually are quite common, and there have been unbelievable amounts of studies done on these things. There's studies, there's documentaries, there's absolutely no explanation for it. And all the people experience and describe something very similar to what we would classify or put in the box of a spiritual experience, right? That's what we could claim it as. So to deny so many different people, and again, this goes to the contingency argument, grounding in contingency of what we would claim to be the mystery. Just even here within the limitations of our five sensorial three-dimensional reality, you have tens of thousands of people with first-person testimonials describing and explaining things that they've seen and done through these near-death experiences, through drug overdoses, car accidents, all sorts of unfortunate circumstances that have happened to people. And you're basically saying that their minds just created the reality, even though, you know, I specifically stated that I was able to tell the doctors their name and things that they said.
Right. Yeah. I'm not denying anyone's experiences. What I'm saying is that I think that they're I'm willing to take you and most other people at their word that they're accurately relaying what they think really happened. So I'm not calling you or anyone else a liar.
No. Don't be so. We're not doing the sensitive stuff. I'm not taking that in any way.
Yeah,
Don't
sure.
worry.
I'm just clarifying. I'm not denying anyone's experience. I'm denying people like yourselves speculation about what the cause of the experience is. And so it's possible that while you're in a coma, your brain is still on some sort of semi-functioning. So you're not dead. So you could possibly still be taking in some sort of sensory information. So you can hear the doctors talking. Your ears aren't broken. You don't have plugs in your ears. So you could potentially hear the doctors say their name. They introduce themselves to each other. They're talking amongst themselves. Your family is there. The doctor introduces himself to your family. So you're gathering sensory information even when you're unconscious. Potentially, that's
better than the first one you did. That's better than the first one.
We can rule out just because we don't know that it's not the case. We're not justified in claiming it's impossible until that's been demonstrated.
Again, that was just one that had to do. I mean, I can go on and the list and stuff, but I don't think that's really where we're trying to go with it. Again, my point of bringing that up was specifically to describe something that's that to me I cannot explain, that I have a direct experience from, that other people witnessed in there, that I experienced directly, and that there is no way to explain this through my human brain, similar to seeing visions of the universe or whatever the case may be. There's so many different ways to describe that. And I'm not trying to get into, I know God exists because I've experienced God, because I've never seen God. You know, I've drank ayahuasca thousands of times. No, I've never seen God. So to your argument,
fine. And
I've never seen a being tell me I am God, you know, because that would be amazing. But that's part of the reasons why I'm explaining the fact that God, in the perspective of the necessary contingent grounding factor that combines reality and actuality eternally, exists.
Yeah, we keep coming back to the argument from ignorance fallacy. When we don't know the explanation, we're not justified in making one up. So if I don't know why things are, what the origin of all contingency is, I'm not justified in saying, oh, I know for sure that it's a God. And similarly, when it comes to our experiences, if we don't know what the explanation for an NDE is, we're also not justified in asserting that there's something beyond our physical brain at play. And it seemed like you downplayed physical brain experiences. You were trying to saddle me with like, oh, it's just your mind making stuff up, as if it has some kind of negative connotation to it. I don't think there's anything negative about the human brain fabricating memories during a coma. I think that's kind of cool. I think the human brain And physical reality is the coolest thing that we can possibly discover. And I think as soon as we start introducing gods and magic into the equation, I think we cheapen reality because we're trying to impose our own inventions in place of mysteries because we're uncomfortable with the unknown.
Says the guy who described my very personal near-death experience at the age of 17 with cars and cameras.
I was just trying to use an analogy.
And satellites and stuff. Like, you're doing the same thing you're accusing me of doing.
The car thing is to point an analogy that I don't want to rehash the whole thing, but you're aware that cars can use multiple cameras to create one cohesive image. And similarly,
when there were no cars and we were on horses, what would your explanation be for that?
Well, back then, my explanation would probably be, I have no idea what the explanation is, like I do now. This is just speculation on my part. I'm just trying to point out that there's a potential naturalistic explanation. And you're dismissing the potential naturalistic
explanation. I'm dismissing it fully,
because you don't know what it is.
No, because I experience, I'm dismissing it. It would be a great way to explain it, and then that would solve a great mystery. But unfortunately, that just simply doesn't even track as a potential reality based off that. Maybe it's because it was a direct experience for me, and it's not an abstract concept. It was an experience that was like the same way that you would remember the first time you had sex or something, like, and perhaps it's more personalized to me than it is to you, and that's could be why. Your second explanation was better than the first one. The first one didn't work because, again, you're using the tools of time and modernity to describe something. What if we're on fucking horses, right? There'd be less explanation for that.
Well,
but the experience would be the same.
Sure. Well, and the analogy using cameras is just an analogy to help me portray an idea, kind of like how we can talk about the mind of God using the analogy of computers and computer hardware, and the planets and the stars. That's the hardware, and God's mind is like the software on the computer. Before computers, we couldn't use that analogy. I have no issue using technology and as an example to understand concepts that predate the technology. I don't see why that's a problem at all. But all I'm trying to do is just use analogies to help portray an idea.
Can nothing exist?
I don't know. I'm not convinced that nothing has ever existed. But I don't know for sure.
Sounds like God to me.
Yeah, it seems like you're just saying that everything is God. The whole cosmos is God. Yeah, and I see no reason to call the cosmos God. I see no reason to think there was any thought that needed to be omitted to create the universe. I'm fine with the idea that the universe just exists and it doesn't need some sort of person or agent or a thinking being in order to cause or ground all things together.
So 50% of the argument that I would personally make on these subjects would have to do with the soul and then the spirit and that stuff. So I'm staying away from that, from the perspective, because you said you don't believe in that. I think that's a different, like, do we have a soul would be a good one, debate. But that would be its own debate. So I'm leaving that alone, right? Because I'm trying to stay away from the idea of a spiritual experience, or there's a whole realm of those Q&As. I'm trying to stick with just this principles of this. So, but nothing existing, or is there such thing as nothing, is actually, I think, an important part to this thought experiment that we're doing that doesn't involve a soul, right? Because I'm not going to say, oh, and nothing can exist and the soul exists, right? But if nothing can exist, you're saying that there's no chance that nothing can exist, that means something.
Well, I didn't say that there's no chance nothing can exist. I said
nothing can exist.
I'm not convinced nothing has ever existed, and I don't know if nothing could ever exist. But it seems like, because of the conservation of energy, nothing can never exist, because there's always been matter and energy in some form, and matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed. So I'm fine, for at least the sake of argument, accepting the claim that something has always existed and nothing cannot exist.
Well, nothing is illogical. We can't logically conceive of nothing. Can we think? Right. Can you think of nothing?
No, exactly. Okay. So that's why I'm fine with agreeing with you that, and I think I'm agreeing with you that nothing has never existed.
Well, I mean, if someone says nothing can exist, I say describe nothing. Tell me because even if you close your eyes and you say you see nothing, you're perceiving it, so you're something. It's illogical that nothing exists.
Here's
And
one
so-
potential.
Hold on, just one
Yeah,
one
sure,
last
go
thing,
ahead.
because if nothing is illogical, because we can't conceive of nothing, but then at the same time we don't have an explanation for it, right? And so if existence, then therefore existence requires no explanation, then God doesn't require an explanation either.
I think at least one of those premises you lost me on. You said that. Sorry, my mind is melting. I kinda lost the middle one. Say it again.
While you're finding that, I just want to let you know you got about 10, 15 minutes to before we wrap up. So if you want to finalize some points, now would be the time.
I have like a list of questions like to attack you with, but I've just been liking the conversation. If you want me to hit you some very powerful questions, I just found them.
Sure. Well, yes. And last thing I'll say about something and nothing is that I have no reason to believe that nothing has ever existed. So I think we agree on that something has always existed. And you were saying how if we can't conceive of something, that means it's impossible. And I'm not necessarily convinced that's the case, just because we can't conceive of something. It sounded like you said that, so I just want to say I disagree. But if that's not your case, then
you should disagree. That's silly.
Okay, great. And
that's silly.
Good. I'm glad we agree.
If I made that statement, that if that was my, I'm assuming that you thought I said that on some level, but no, as a standalone, what you just absolutely not. That's
okay.
That's
cool. Yeah, hit me with your first question. I want to be attacked. Yeah, bring it up.
Okay, well, no, I'm not attacking. Jed, I'm not attacking you, dude. We've had a great conversation.
No, sure, I know. You said you wanted to attack me with questions.
No, I said I have devastating questions.
Okay. We'll rewind the tape, but in any case, hit me with the first one.
So we already went over the nothing thing, thank God, because there are a lot of atheists that will try to explain nothing to me.
A lot of atheist concepts of nothing are actually something, where there's particles popping into and out of existence and low levels of energy. So, I think it's Lawrence Krauss who talks about something from nothing, where nothing isn't actually nothing. It's still something.
Okay. Let's see. I had a couple one line. The greatest miracle is not God. It's believing that nothing created everything.
Yeah, I don't believe nothing created anything. I don't believe that everything has been created, and I'm not convinced that nothing has ever existed. I think the universe could very well be eternal and infinite in some form.
Let's see here. Let's pull up my questions here for you. Where are we?
That might be the number one biggest straw man that theists try to throw at atheists, which is that, you think something came from nothing. And I don't think that.
Thank God.
Yeah, because that would be pretty silly.
Yeah. There's a chain of thoughts about that. Let's see. A lot of nothing stuff. Is existence ongoing?
It seems to be. I exist, I think I exist, and I seem to be continuing to exist.
Let's see here. That's not it. Here we go.
I have a question for you while you find the next one. Is God infinite?
Yes.
Doesn't that make God an infinite regression?
No, unless you believe in samsara. That's a very Hindu perspective.
If something exists forever, how is it not an infinite regression?
Again, are you familiar with samsara?
No.
Samsara is like birth, death, rebirth. Greek is the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its own tail.
Okay.
Inside of that is God.
So it's kind of cyclical.
Reality.
Yeah.
Reality is cyclical.
I'm fine with the idea that reality itself could be cyclical, but I have no reason to think that there needs to be a God in order to explain that.
The potentiality and the opportunity for existence to transmute itself, even from the concept of energy and to matter, and between energy and matter would be gases and like whether noble gases or we say the smoke here on Earth, etc. That would get into the alchemical aspect of that you completely deny. But that's also probably because of your 20 years as a Christian. You probably also rejected the Gospel of Thomas as heresy also. But
I don't think I heard about the Gospel of Thomas until after I was an atheist.
Yeah,
But
well, it's not bad. It's like a Buddha.
You said that smoke is somewhere between matter and energy, and I'm no physicist, but I'm confident that smoke is entirely matter and not energy, because it's particles in the air. Air is matter. Oxygen is matter. CO2 is matter. Everything in the air is matter. Nitrogen, just because we can't see it, they're just microscopic particles floating around.
Sure. Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, it's particles. The alchemical or the spiritual claim would be that it's essence, and that you could breathe that in, for example. So if you're taking tobacco and you're burning it, you're burning the body in the essence of the tobacco. If you have let's say your wife uses peppermint oil, you're taking the peppermint leaf and you're extracting the essence, the essentia of the plant into the oil, and you're using it for different things. The same concept is utilized for the concept of marijuana. Take the marijuana and put it in the oil, and the essence leaves that, and now you have the essence. But you would think of it as only as chemicals, so it doesn't really, the conversation on that wouldn't really go so far if everything's just chemicals. And
well, I have no reason to believe that any of those things are anything more than chemicals and physical matter or energy. So like when you burn marijuana, for example, what you're doing is taking bits of marijuana oil and putting it into your bloodstream, and that's getting into your brain and affecting the way you think. And it's physical matter that's actually affecting your brain, and not some sort of supernatural or magical essence.
Have you ever worked with any plant medicines?
Have I ever worked with plant medicines?
Or experienced a plant medicine? Like, have you ever drank ayahuasca?
No, but I have had cannabis.
Mushrooms? Have you ever? Okay. If you drink ayahuasca a few times, I think you'd probably, because you're I would call you a spiritually aware person, regardless of your opinions of what that means. And I say this as a compliment. I would say that if you drink ayahuasca a couple times in the right place, you would have what we would call a spiritual experience, or something that you just can't explain. And there would be this deeper inner knowingness and experiential, that you wouldn't necessarily even be able to explain to somebody else, but it would give you it'd be interesting to see.
I've definitely heard that ayahuasca can induce really profound experiences, and I've heard that it can make you feel as though you're experiencing like 1,000-year-long sleep or dream, but it was only 10 minutes long. In your experience, have you ever had time dilation in such a way where you thought you were experiencing tons and tons of time, years, but it was actually a few minutes?
Oh my gosh, people have that's very possible. These are the types of things, and that's just one explanation of something. But it's interesting when you see someone like an atheist, like someone who just rejects. Usually the rejections come from anger. Usually it's from feeling deceived by those that are supposed to trust you. You're supposed to trust most parents. And then when coming to this realization of hey, guess what? I just simply don't think that a guy 2,000 years ago actually created the universe. Sorry. And then they kind of now you're something's wrong with you. But you're actually, nothing's wrong with me. What I'm saying, rejecting that, actually is more logical than you guys just blindly accepting it. You kind of pull the curtain back and no more Wizard of Oz. That would be a painful experience. So a lot of people reject the concept of even the soul and spiritual experiences from actual direct experience of pain. But ayahuasca can really deliver people a non-denominational spiritual experience. You can conceive of things that are so profound, as a conscious functionality of the fabric of reality, and witness the mechanisms of how reality is formed. And you're just oh my fucking God. That's what you'll say in your mind.
It's definitely on my bucket list to try.
Yeah,
maybe,
because
who knows? But
if you don't,
thing about being is that I'm allowed to say things like "oh my fucking God," because as a Christian, I wasn't allowed to say that because you can't take the Lord's name in vain. One thing you said was that a lot of people leave their religion because of anger, or they reject God claims because of anger. And I think that part of what you said is right, where that there can be some anger and frustration when you pull back the curtain and realize you've been lied to, but it's not the anger that causes you to reject the claims. I think it's an honest evaluation of evidence that causes you to reject the claims.
Yeah.
And the anger can be the result of feeling as though you've been betrayed by people you trust, or the feeling like you've wasted a lot of time, money, or resources to a church or a religion that you no longer are convinced is true.
Yeah. That was my point, for sure. It's no one likes to be lied to and deceived, man. And if you've been deceived by a girlfriend for like 1 week or 1 month, you may not talk to that person again. So to be deceived from the beginning from parents, and and then that would be rough. Like I get it, like especially if they don't even really believe, but still put you through the indoctrination. Usually that's just based off of social, because we're very tribal. Humans are very tribal, so you're a part of the neighborhood. I found the questions. You ready?
One last thing on that note is that when it comes to parents and being deceived by them, I think most parents, when they indoctrinate their children, are doing so because they are honestly believing the claims. They're actually real Christians, so to speak. They truly believe what they're telling their kids is the truth. I don't think they're trying to be deceitful.
Sometimes one of them, and sometimes there's one of them that doesn't.
Yeah, actually, that's true. And then the parent who goes along
more common
doing so to keep their spouse happy. That can definitely be the case.
Happy wife, happy life.
And I think that anyone who teaches their kid that Christianity or any religion is actually true when they don't believe it themselves does deserve some level of anger,
accountability,
being intentionally deceitful.
Yeah, you proverbial you deserve a very serious explanation for that. That is absolute deceit, and shame on anyone who does that.
Yeah, agreed.
There are people that watch this and are doing that to their kids. Shame on you right now. And if you and it is a true dichotomy. You believe or you don't believe. And so if you kind of believe, then you don't believe. You understand? So either go find your belief and then try to tell someone that. Don't just bring your kids and hand them over to anyone for any reason. You wouldn't do that with some other ideology. So the idea that you're going to do that with a religious organization is crazy to me.
Yeah, you nailed it when you said you either believe or you don't, and it's a dichotomy. And that's
a true dichotomy.
Yeah, that's why everyone is either a theist or an atheist, and agnostic is not some middle ground, because you can't just, if you don't know there's a God, that means you're an atheist because you're not convinced he exists or it exists. So you're either convinced a God exists or you're not, and there's no middle ground.
Agreed. Yeah. But the thing I respect about you is that you're actually on the search. You're going through the intellectual components of it, tapping into a little bit of the science of it, and so on. But there is a direct experience that would either lend you to the credence that, you know what, maybe actually, in a 50-50 thing, maybe there's a 1% chance more that there is in fact something that the mystery, I guess what I should say is, the mystery is not as mysterious. We actually have tools that our ancestors have always had, in the form of plant medicines and different types of experiences, transcendental experiences, breath, meditations, fasting, deprivation, lots of various ways for people to have those experiences. And although the majority of those things can be explained through an experience within the brain and the mind, and as we progress down time, we think we have more of the answers to that as far as like science is concerned. Science is irrelevant to the direct experience. So perhaps, trying out some direct experiences, whereas you can scientifically explain that if you do a holotropic breath work, what happens to the brain? Sure. But you still have that experience. And that experience is yours now. And that experience merges in with the brain and the other conscious experiences of it. And so it's expanding more and more. And as a person like yourself, who's a thinker and a seeker, which you are a seeker, obviously, there is a whole chapter of things in the direct experience that I would suggest you looking more seriously into. Not to saying that it'll make you find, quote, God, but I think some of the stuff that I'm saying as far as like there has to be the mystery is not as mysterious as opposed to, as opposed to what sounds to be like a full, powerful rejection of that based off of those. It'll balance out the experiences that you did have. Okay, how about that?
Sure.
It'll take away. You'll never say he and his hand and all that shit.
One thing to definitely consider about experiences too is that sometimes our perception is unreliable. So we might think we're seeing something, but our brain is playing a trick on us, so to speak, not intentionally.
True.
But some people have schizophrenia, or you might see a floaty on your eye, which you think is something you're perceiving in reality,
Spaceship,
but it's just a
a
bubble
UFO.
on your own eyeball.
You're like, it's
so
a
our
UFO.
brains can also fabricate memories after the experience. The more time that goes by, and the more we think about the memory, the more our brain can actually manipulate it and change the memory until it no longer resembles what actually happened. And we can convince ourselves of falsehoods by doing that. But you said you had some questions for me, and I think we're close to being out of time, so maybe we could get through a few of those before we move on.
There's other things like, do you believe, like, for example, like, can I send you a telepathic thought?
No, but I'll also mention that if we facial expressions and nonverbal communication is huge. So I can raise an eyebrow, and that might, relay a thought to you, but it's not telepathic. It's because you're picking up something with your eyes. You're seeing visual cues on my face based on things that you know from other people portraying emotions, or maybe you know me personally and I do this quirk with my eyebrow when I'm mad or something. So there's a lot of nonverbal cues that I don't think would constitute telepathic communication.
No, in the form of a sentence, like an entire sentence, right? And the answer is, everyone would say no. Well, then what's a text message?
Sure.
Right? The text message is a tool that we've created. So now telepathy is not so magical anymore, because now we've created a tool that I can, without any training, I can send something to you and you can receive it perfectly. And we're all doing magic through
They
machines.
say that any advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic from someone in the ancient past.
Yet there's always stories of people being able to do these type of magical things without the tools. And perhaps, and this is planting a seed, perhaps we are magical tools. And the brain is a magical tool and more profound than we even think. And you may be looking at it only from specific categories. It's like taking a book and you're using the second half of the book, and I'm saying there's an entire other half of that book.
When it comes to people making claims about magical powers, it is interesting how we've never been able to actually demonstrate any magical powers exist within anyone. And I'm sure you're familiar with the James Randi Foundation, which had $1 million prize to anyone who could sufficiently demonstrate a magical power or supernatural ability. And unsurprisingly, no one ever won the $1 million because no one was sufficiently able to demonstrate it.
Is that still available?
Unfortunately, no. Mr. Randi passed away a few years ago.
Abracadabra.
Wow.
Death is very magical. So is birth.
Depends on your definition of magic, I suppose. If we're using it in a colloquial sense, oh, it was so magical, I saw the head crowning, but we have a full understanding of how biological reproduction works. So there's nothing magical going on. It's completely naturalistic. And we have a very good understanding of mitosis and meiosis and how cells multiply over time, and newborn baby can grow in a uterus, etc. I mean,
I'm leaving out all the spiritual stuff on this. I'll fucking dive deep into this. Where did we come from? What happens after we die? Good and evil, purpose in life. These are like 4 foundational questions that any time in space we know. We're all looking for the answers to this. And science doesn't have very good explanations that are good enough for me. That's why I went down the shamanic path of self-discovery.
Would you gentlemen like to move into closing statements? That sounded like a good wrap right there.
Can I actually ask one question? I think this is going to be an interesting one. Which is more irrational, an eternal source of being or existence that emerges from non-being?
Which is more irrational? I don't know.
Eternal source of being, like a source of being, right? Or existence that emerges from non-being?
I'm not sure I can answer that. I don't know which one is less rational.
Can a non-being have causal power?
A non-being, if something doesn't exist, then it can't cause anything. But
an existence requires an eternal source.
Well, existence itself could be eternal. So there doesn't necessarily need to be an eternal source if existence itself, if the cosmos extends back into the past forever.
And that would be God.
Or an eternal universe.
God, exactly. Yeah, I had like 10 of them.
Well, let's because we
let's
still
move on.
do have we also still have Gauntlet, and I believe you both typically stick around for Gauntlet anyways.
Sarah, I enjoyed
and
this. Thank you.
You're most welcome. And the also during when we read the super chats, sometimes other conversations can come up as well. So let's go ahead and maneuver over to Jed, if you'd like to provide your closing statement, please.
Sure.
Do you even need closing statements? Do you feel like, Jed, do you feel you need a closing
statement?
statement?
I'll keep it brief.
Okay.
So I think the biggest thing that we heard, the biggest argument we heard in the favor of God today was the argument from ignorance fallacy, where we're finding a mystery within the universe, why the universe exists, why things, or what's the necessary cause of all contingent things. We find these mysteries and then we call the explanation God, but I'm not convinced that we can ever be confident or that the explanation is God, because our lack of an explanation is not a justification to make up our own explanation. The word God carries with it so much baggage that I don't think it's a good idea to relabel things that we already have words for, like the cosmos or dark matter, as God, because if you tell someone you believe in God, their immediate assumption is going to be you believe in a guy who intentionally decided to create the universe and perhaps has thoughts of his own. When if you actually mean that God is a gender neutral force that's mysterious and all things are contingent on it and it creates the necessary grounding for all things, I think we're talking about two different things, and it can cause a lot of confusion to use the God label. And I think we'd all be better off if we stopped using the God label, because religions like Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are so harmful to our modern society. And I think we both agree that they're all nonsense. They make extremely outlandish, unbacked, unbased claims and cause extreme harm to everyone who's adhering to the religion and everyone outside the religion. And if we were to accept that, or if we were to reject and stop using the God label to describe the universe and potentially natural explanations for things, then I think everyone would be better off. That's about it. I'll just give myself a quick plug. My name's Jed, the Flying Spaghetti Auditor. You can find me on YouTube at that handle I just mentioned, Instagram, TikTok, Flying Spaghetti Audits. I post mostly shorts, 1 to 3 minute long videos. I try to put at least one out a week, but it's hard with a full-time job. And a lot of people will say, why do you devote your entire life and existence to atheism and proving there's no God and talking about contradictions in the Bible? And I certainly don't devote my entire existence to this. It's a small part of my life, but it's a passion of mine. And one thing that's super cool about the topic of religion and God is that there's so many other topics that are ingrained within it. We can talk about history, ancient civilizations, biology, evolution, the cosmos, physics. Everything is entangled within theology and the God concept. So that's part of the reason I find it so interesting, because it forces me to learn about cool stuff that I wouldn't look into otherwise. And thanks again, Sarah, for hosting. Thank you, Shaman, for the cool and interesting and thought-provoking discussion.
Thank you so much, Jed. I have a very great appreciation for you, sir. Mr. Omar, to you, my love. Your closing statement, please.
Great debate, great conversation. I think, the position I was making would lean in towards the supreme force, right? So a necessary, continuously active ground of being, not some static first cause or first mover, like an ever-present, everlasting, ever-moving mover. I think I laid out what I'm trying to describe as God. I also do understand that every time I say the word God, that I'm bringing it back down into an Abrahamic framework, usually, or a 22 million gods and goddesses in Hinduism. I understand, but half of the actual conversation that I would give would actually bring it down from this Ahura Mazda, from this ever-present, that which that which all came from and exists within. That existence itself, the collective perception, the collective experiences, the collective material, matter, space, time, et cetera, would have a component that would have some form of soul in our experience, at least in this five sensorial three-dimensional reality. And then when you get into that, now we're talking about densities, and we're talking about spirits, and we're talking about a lot of other interesting things which we didn't touch on tonight, and that would be a different experience. Ultimately, it's not about believing in something rather than nothing. When you believe in nothing, again, as I described, there's no such thing as nothing. Nothing is intelligible. It doesn't make any sense, right? And so even if you close your eyes and envision nothing, you're still going to be the perception that's seeing something. You are the something that's perceiving. And so as long as we have this experience in life, it is important for us to try to determine it's almost our responsibility to ourselves to try to solve this grand mystery. Conversations like this are great with our, Christian and Jewish and Muslim and Buddhist and Hindu friends. I'm sure that's why Jed likes to talk to them too, in the hopes that we can perhaps expand their consciousness even a little bit to get past the monkey explanations, which is, I think, what Jed was alluding to. I think that when we expand our understanding of what I mean by God, or what the totality of the concept means, we expand our understanding and our experiences, and we're able to have a much better experience in the human level. And I'm very grateful for this experience of sharing it with Sarah and with Jed. It was a great conversation. And I look forward to hearing some of these questions.
Thank you, Omar. I'm so thankful.
Is that neutral?
Oh, it's beautiful. I'm so thankful that you found us. We've had a lot of great conversations with you on board, and I appreciate you so much. All right. To the audience, we are going to, number one, congratulations to the chat. You take a big fat W tonight. You hit the goal. You are getting your gauntlet for the evening and then some. It was a really spunky chat this evening, and I've been really appreciating and enjoying all of you. So I will drop the link in the chat here in just a minute. And then number two, we'll read through the super chats. And then, of course, we'll bring up the panel once I drop the link into open panel Q&A to ask your questions, and then go into full-time gauntlet mode. This was a really great discussion, guys. I have huge appreciation for the both of you. All right. Fourth Wiseman sent a lot of questions and statements this evening, so feel free to respond to them as you need be. Fourth says, God exists, but no matter how much you pigeonhole yourself attached to a cult of religion, you deny all that is there in evidence to know God truly exists. Continued. This is also a definitive reason why I'll never debate someone coming from a point of view from the cult mentality. Arguing with stupid only lowers oneself to the same level of stupidity, period. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
Well, one thing I'll say is that I think there is value in arguing and debating with people who have ignorant or, quote, stupid beliefs, because while it's true that you may never be able to get through to them, there could be a lot of people watching the debate who are more reasonable and more rational, someone who's perhaps on the fence, who you could convince to come to reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Mr. Omar, any thoughts?
The common sense is not so common. So as usual, I agree with Fourth Wiseman. And maybe he's taking the wiser approach and just like staying out of it, so he remains energetically, free of it all. But I spent 25% of my life serving medicine to people all around the world and helping people solve problems, addictions, and all sorts of problems. So now for this chapter is all about deprogramming the brain of the collective. So I think it's important. I think the narrative is important. We can do more by talking to people. That's why I spend a lot of time in the theological debates with people.
That's fair.
So I think it's important. I think it's important. Depends on what you're here for.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I'm here for hosting amazing people and their great topics and conversations. IO10 with the Big 10 says, pay your taxes, unlock the gauntlet, which it has been unlocked. Congratulations again. And of course, if you do want to join open panel Q&A, the link to get to the backstage is being dropped in the live chat right now. So please feel free to make way back there while we're going through these. Objective ethics with the Big 20. Objective ethics. What a kind gentleman. We need to get him back up here for some more debates. I'm at work, but here's a little something to show my support. Be kind to a stranger today and be kind to yourself. I love that. Very, very thoughtful. Tom Carpenter says with the Big 10, I thought this was a God debate. What's up with all the talk?
We didn't talk anything gay. No homo talk this entire time. We were good.
The opener, my opener. When I said homostasis, and all I was like, all that stuff.
Oh goodness. And of course, Tom sent lots of love and says, may your night be merry and bright. He sent $50 over on the Cash App, which is my favorite place for you guys to send money. Thank you so kindly. It goes very far there. James also says, fuck your goal, Sarah. For the Wiseman says, my God is your God and your God is my God. No matter how anyone tries to describe God, simple logic fails every time. It's not a linear format. The cult systems have divided truth, not united anything. Any thoughts?
I don't know if I think I disagree with the first sentence. My God is your God and your God is my God. There are definitely different God claims out there. So Shaman's God is incredibly different from the Christian God or the Muslim God, which is different from any of the 200 Hindu gods. There's tons of gods on offer. The flying spaghetti monster, they're not all created equal and they're not all the same God. And you can't conflate all of them into the same category because they can't all exist. They're mutually exclusive.
Well, yeah, I would agree. But I would say that every single God that he claimed and everyone that he didn't mention would all return to that same source. And that source is God.
I would call it the human imagination.
The human imagination is the names. I don't have a name for this God. Otherwise, I'd have a very powerful religion.
Okay. All right. James says, won't be up for Gauntlet. Of course, James never wants to join, but +1 to the goal anyways. Thank you so kindly, James. We love you. Iotin says, let's get the goal handled early so we can all just like chill for a bit. They did. They hit that goal like within maybe the first 30 minutes. You guys kicked ass tonight. And of course,
amazing.
Tom allowed the matriarchy to tell the patriarchy what to do tonight. So he says, okay, Iotin, okay, kaboom, and done. Very beautiful. And of course, Pass coming in to say, much love, Sarah. Keep being you and don't ever change for anything or anyone. You know how to reach me. Real one, family, and respect. God, I love the maters over here. So much love. Andrew, also known as Santa, says, nice to hear a calm and less hysterical exchange of ideas. For the Gauntlet donations, he wrote the wrong one. It's almost an insult, Santa. Almost an insult. But I expect
that's Santa.
Yes,
he didn't do that on purpose.
No, he didn't do it on purpose. But it was funny though, because sometimes people don't. Some people know, some people don't know. But yes, he's backstage waiting to get up here. Fourth Wiseman says the human descriptions of God and the workings of how, who, what, why, all are mere fragmented descriptions of something much greater than any complete narrative that will ever encompass it all. Any thoughts?
I think it's interesting how a lot of times people will claim their God is beyond understanding. But if it's beyond understanding, then you're unjustified in claiming you understand it. How can you possibly claim to know anything about a God who's beyond understanding? Because if I can't understand it, then you can't understand it.
Well, I started off and I said, knowing that the unknown is known to the one, this is how we know that God exists. So it's just a matter of, do we think that there is a causation and a consistent grounding factor that exists and the reason why order is order, or do we simply believe it's just random order through unordered chaos, right? I mean, we could look at it just like that alone, right? That's like the farthest scope from that. So, I get it though. I mean, but again, just to clarify also, if I were to have to genderize a God, I would say it's far more logical that God would be a woman than a male, because we would just be, because the sperm still doesn't exist. What are we inside of the sperm? We're inside of the male God sperm? Probably not.
What?
We would be inside of a womb of some sort of eternal mother. If I had to pick a gender, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that there is a gender, but it would make more sense that it's a woman, not a male. So the idea of like God the Father, it doesn't make sense. Like,
yeah, it's entirely because of the misogynistic nature of the men who made up these God claims. I mean, I agree that it would make more sense for a creator God to be a female, because females generally, at least with humans and most tetrapods, are the ones who, quote, create life. So yeah, why would you make the creator of life a man? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, there's control, but it's the oldest trick in the book. By the way, the God as a male only is like a few thousand years old, because of, and actually, if you go to the biblical, if you go textual Hebrew, even every Friday night, like tonight, when Shabbat Shalom, by the way, to all of you, the first prayer you're doing is you're praying that God, the Father, in the form of Yahweh, which they would say Hashem, that in his Shabbos bride, which is called the Shekhinah, right, which was Asherah. So you're praying that God and his Shabbos bride will come together in union and bless your table. They're literally praying for the divine union every Friday, but for the rest of the week, this is God, the dude, rolling solo. So it's actually the oldest understanding, because Asherah was the queen of Baal, and then later in the early Yahwist, Asherah was the queen and the bride, so to speak, of Yahweh for the very long period. She was actually, it's similar to Council of Nicaea during the beginning stages of Yahwism becoming the national religion of what would form as Israel. They had big arguments on the subject matter of God does not have a bride, and God is the male, Yahweh is all. So that was developed, by the way. That was not the early understanding of the.
It's a classic case of personifying God and creating gods in our own image, because all we're doing is giving human attributes to a God, and how anyone can know what the divine family tree looks like is beyond me. I'd love to see their peer-reviewed essay on that.
Well, in my book, I said God the Father, the seed of universal life, yet in the womb of the eternal mother is where the spirits and atoms are combined. So I have a whole conversation about that, but we'll leave. That was the spiritual stuff, and you said you don't believe in the soul, so I left all spiritual stuff out.
That was very nice of you.
Thank you.
All right. Iotin says, with the Big Ten, God is real because the universe is expanding outwards from one specific point, and at one time it wasn't doing that. Something started the expanding part. Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's a complete non sequitur. There's no reason that the first three words have anything to do with anything that comes afterwards. The fact that our universe is expanding and that at one point it was a singularity and something started the expansion, which I'm not convinced is necessarily the case, has nothing to do with whether a God is real. He hasn't connected those dots.
Well, I would agree with my friendly interlocutor, except I would say that we say it started from one point. How do we know that one point isn't just this side of the universe's black hole, and it all came from the other side of a pre-existing universe? And I would say pre-existing, and creating and future existing, and all that is why those first three words I agree with.
It could very well be that there's one universe is going back and forth between a black hole. Maybe there's something like that is going on, but I don't see any reason to assert a God into that system. I don't see why God has anything to do with that. It sounds like a naturalistic explanation.
I disagree. I would say that, again, I think that a not causal force is illogical. I think it doesn't make any sense that you can't have order through chaos. Something has to order it. We can't say gravity did it. We can't say physics did it, because those are not causations. Those are like explanations of things that already exist. That's the problem. It's hard.
Couldn't gravity and these forces be just ingrained into the nature of reality itself? Like this is just the way that matter interacts with other matter?
Because gravity, yes. The second part, because gravity is a response to is a reaction to the movement of matter, right? I mean, it's a response to it. It's not a causation.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the problem. It's not, again, because I don't even have a name when I'm talking about God on the highest level that I conceivable. It's either something's there or it's not there. That's the problem. And not there doesn't make any sense. There has to be a source. If everything came from something at some point, that thing has to continue to exist. Otherwise, there's no such thing, right? And the order that we can witness, even within our own body, just on a biological perspective, the order within our mind, which has a masculine and feminine side as well as our body, just as well as we have Father, Son, and Mother Moon, right? These feminine, masculine principles of creation have always existed. And again, that's going to the alchemical stuff, which I also left out in the traditional, brother, not the 1500s alchemy. I'm talking about the ancient versions of it. But anyway, I left all that out too. Otherwise I'd have a much grander circular.
Well, one final thought I'll point out is that the concept of masculine and feminine have not always existed, because the earliest life forms were asexual. They just reproduced asexually, and sexual reproduction was something that came much later. But when it comes to everything came from something, then there had to be...
hold on. What are we talking about? What, like we're talking about amoebas on Earth? Or are you talking about universal? Which one are we talking about?
On Earth, yeah.
Okay, on Earth. But the Earth there is a reason why we call it Mother Earth. So the Earth itself is a feminine perspective. That's how creation and nature comes through it. And then the father is the sun, and then the mother would be the moon. And so, as well as the quickest way that humans and any independent consciousness was here, they started attributing masculine and femininity to nature itself and everything we can see. The first second that we came here, we started attributing that stuff.
Yeah, that's fair to say. I'm just saying that those things aren't necessarily ingrained. Like the sun isn't actually a male just because people attribute male qualities to the sun and female qualities to the moon. The moon's just a rock. It's not male or female.
Well, it's interesting though, but when you look at it and you see, you hear about full moons and people acting crazy, and you would agree that there's a masculine and feminine side of the brain from the perspective of the left side of the brain is the masculine, analytical, logical. The right side is artistic, creative, etc. Right? We have two sides of the hemispheres of the brain.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. And so if you reverse that into the mass, you have the left side is the feminine path, the left-hand path, and the right-hand path, right? That may be too much. But if you look at, for example, when a full moon happens and the high tides rise, people are more creative at night, right? That's why it's called the witching hour. The Aquarian sadhana hours are when the high tide is up between 3:30 and 4:30. Also, during full moons, you have more murder and more chaos that happens. People get more fucked up. And that's because they don't know how to, at night, you're more creative. Also, because the feminine energies rise in the feminine part of our brain. The reason why the sun is masculine is because father son, and during the day we're analytical, logical, etc. So there is an alchemical connection to the functionality. And again, I can go into deep into this stuff and to the triangulation of all of it, but I left that out too, because that has nothing to do with our
some people are illogical all day, every day, at nighttime.
That's true, but those people act crazier during a full moon.
And that's what happens when our panels hit the 3 a.m. hour. Let's try to be a little shorter with our responses because we do have a lot to get through. That's okay. These are great. Andrew Santa says scientific casual is traced discreetly to a cause, not a metaphysical one. Any thoughts on that one?
I don't understand.
Well, I think it says scientific causal, not casual.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, you said that, but I still read casual 3 times. I read it 3 times, but I didn't obviously read it though, did I?
Fair enough. Causal.
Yeah, I'm fine with the idea that the universe, that there's some sort of cause behind the things that we see and encounter, but I see no reason to assume that cause is a god.
Okay. All right. Santa is backstage, so I'm sure he'll have more fun with you here in a little bit. Plumpy gifting not only 1, but 2, and 3 And 4 Raging Tomato memberships out there. Congratulations to the lucky lottery winners. Fourth Wiseman says Plato's doorway. If you don't understand geometry, do not enter. Now ask, on what medium does everything travel along or through? The answer lay within. Dun, dun, dun. Any thoughts?
I agree with Fourth Wiseman again. I mean, I have like 4 poems in my book on this subject.
I don't have any thoughts on this one.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Big shout out because Fourth Wiseman came in and got his Rockstar membership today. I'm so proud of him. That's the super duper awesome Rockstar status membership. But he laid a little trend because Carpenter Tom Carpenter came in and got one as well. So shout out to both of our rock stars in our Mater chat. We love you so much. Fourth Wiseman says, shout out to the conversation taking place and format created to host this content in this manner. Thank you. Yes, you guys, this was a really more deep level. I was really excited for this one before you guys did kicked off. Also, Fourth Wiseman says matter cannot be destroyed at all. It converts sometimes into partitions, smaller and attaching to another X, or sometimes into something larger, yet it's still matter that converted up or down. Any additives to that one?
Well, he's going to agree. Well,
Yeah.
again, when matter transmutes into pure energy, it's energy. It's potential matter, but it's pure energy. So it's 100% energy. It's not it's zero matter. So can it transmute then into energy in the form of like gases and dust particles and create a planet? Yes. But that entire process is transmutation. But when it goes from matter and potential energy to energy, that's what I was describing. Maybe we're saying the same thing, and maybe I'm going a little too nitpicking into it. I don't know. It's possible.
And perhaps I'm getting hung up on the word destroyed. I'll reiterate again that smoke and dust are matter and not energy. But when matter transforms into energy, it's not being destroyed, it's just transforming. And then when you said
yes,
energy transforms into matter, that's not destruction, but it's destruction one way, but not the other, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, maybe the destroy. Yeah, maybe the destroy thing. I think I may have said destroy. Yeah, that doesn't. Or maybe I don't know how destroy. Or he said destroyed.
Your original claim was that matter can be destroyed.
Ah, okay. So yeah, destroy is not the right word for that for sure. Okay, so we have now come. So now we both agree, God.
At least we both agree on the conservation of energy.
Listen, we both agree that the word God is just not the word. But the best word I have for it is called Ahura Mazda, the uncreated one. One meaning one, all.
What about higher power?
Higher power be the force in which the uncreated one, meaning not one singular man, God, the being, one meaning all. Looking at all creation as one, the uncreated one is called Ahura Mazda. Maybe I should start using that.
Would you call me? Howard says, I'm not even a little worried. Omar got this in the bag. Anything you want to say to that, Omar?
I mean, again, it just depends on your perspective, right? There's no, I didn't pull out a bag and say I've captured God and here it is, and therefore I won. I mean, I just think that I don't know. I don't think that I in any way didn't. Let's just say I don't think that Jed was able to dispel. I think that my argument about God as a causational grounding force is far more logical than the no God concept. It's illogical, but his claim was highly intelligent because he never said no God. He just said,
I think both of us did a pretty good job articulating our thoughts and ideas.
I agree. Howard also couldn't just sit down. He said, nope, I'm going to send out 5 Raging Tomato memberships. Congratulations to you, lucky lottery winners as well. Fourth Wiseman says with the big 20, when you're not comprehending a meaning, blah, blah, blah. When you're not comprehending a meaning at first, then comes reflection. This type of reflecting is best not done often, i.e., retain your memories. This is why you can project your future and no longer reflect on the past. Grow love. Any additives there?
The last part of grow is the key to that entire statement. 100%. I completely agree.
I think in general, looking towards the future is more productive than looking at the past, because reminiscing about the past or feeling regretful about things you've done is never going to lead you anywhere. The best thing you can do is look forward. What are you going to do in the future?
Well, I mean, if you sit down and close your eyes and you create your 5 focus points of the future, you're not just trying to create like, okay, the mansion, like that's the wrong way to go. You don't start creating like, okay, the mansion, here's my Victoria's Secret model wife. No, you want to tap into the feeling and feel the feeling of how it feels to be in that place and allow the visions to create themselves, which does come from the mind. I fully understand, right? And then you're pouring your essence or your soul into those visions, and that's the proper clean way of creating it, right? Of creating your future from that, not picking a material thing and masturbating to it, tapping into your actual, your heart and feeling into the feeling of like, what does success feel like? Breathing into it, right? And again, that goes into a more spiritual experience that I was describing or staying away from tonight.
I may also point out that the past and the future do not actually exist. The only thing that's real is now, the present. And so possibly one better thing to do than even looking toward the future is appreciating the now. What are we doing now? How can we find happiness now? Because if we're always thinking about the past or thinking toward the future, then we're missing out on what's actually happening and what's actually real.
Ooh.
I just noticed in the comments, someone just put in there that Moses spoke to the burning bush. And okay. All right.
Howard sends Big 10, says, know thyself. That's so lovely. Thank you so kindly, Howard. Fourth Wiseman, he had so many things to say this whole night. Here's your oxymoron about nothing. Nothing is something. Something is nothing, and something does not exist. But to not exist must be something, so therefore nothing exists. Have fun, everyone. And if that's not Dr. Seuss in a super chat, I don't know what is.
The guy's a master. I've never read a bad comment from him. I would love
never.
to find out who this person is.
No,
I reject the first premise that nothing is something.
Nothing is something.
Well, no thing. No thing. Nothing, no thing. Right. So then what's no thing? Nothing.
No thing is to not have something.
It's like saying, who am I? Who's asking?
Oh. Ooh. Interesting. All right. We'll let that brain teaser sit there for later. Shout out to Sandy. I freaking roll using Bandwagon. Believe me, bro. Shout out to Tom Carpenter again. He sends in a big 50 over on the Cash App just because we're awesome. I love you guys so much. Fourth Wiseman says, God exists, period. I'm not a theist, nor an atheist, nor any cult faction affiliated. I have no pigeonhole to describe what I am. To do so only comes with limits, and limits make you hit a wall. Ooh, I like that actually. When you pigeonhole yourself into a certain category, right, then you're limited to only that category. All right, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, go ahead, Jess. Sorry.
I was going to say these categories are tools of language that we use to communicate ideas. So as soon as he says God exists, he's qualifying himself as a theist, because a theist is someone who believes God exists. So I don't think he's pigeonholing himself or putting limits on his own beliefs. He would just be accurately describing what he believes, which is a theist, someone who believes that there is a God.
Yeah, I agree. But if let's just say Fourth Wiseman was limiting his his words to saying that the universe, all matter in space, all that exists, that's God, and therefore you can say the universe is God. Then if you deny God under that pretense, then you're denying the existence of reality within the universe. Therefore, God. That's how easy the argument is.
Okay. Cheetown watching over on the Twitch side. Shout out to Cheetown and Match over there hanging out in Twitch world, keeping the chat on lockdown over there. Sends a big 5 on the coffee app, says, happy Friday to Sarah, chat, mods, visitors, old friends, and other distant relations. Shout out to you, Cheetown, and everyone who's hanging out tonight. Fourth Wiseman, this is the final one, and then we're going to get our panel up here. Thank you, Omar and Jed. A proper conversation carried out in a proper manner.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a really good conversation and have like a thought experiment. I didn't want to like, I don't think there's a quote win necessarily, because if I need to prove to him that God exists, then I don't really believe, like whether he believes or doesn't believe in whatever the case may be, it doesn't change my effects. I'm a little too old for that shit. Yeah,
and debates are really for the people watching. It's unlikely that any two debate opponents are going to change each other's mind. But like I mentioned earlier, potentially there's people watching who could have their minds swayed, or at the very least, we're presenting interesting ideas and thought-provoking topics for people to mull over in the future.
If I use a word, if I made a different word or even made a word up and presented my argument, then I think that at 90% of the stuff I said and took the word God out, there wouldn't be a debate, because you would agree with the majority of the stuff I said. I just used the word God and kept using the word God because you completely reject that word. So it gave it a really good conversational piece. But if I didn't use the word God, we would just be sitting here agreeing with each other the majority of the time. Minus the last little bit about causation and the thought process that you were talking about, the mind and thought, and we would get into that too much.
I think there's definitely some things that we found disagreement about besides the idea of God. But even if you were to label some supreme creator as a different word than God, I'm not convinced that there is a creator, because I don't think the universe was created.
But creator means something was created and it's in its finalization. I'm saying we are inside of a supreme creation.
Yeah,
it's right now.
I think that's begging the question, because I don't think we can call the cosmos a creation until we demonstrate that it has been created.
Well, that's a real easy thing to do. I just say, open your eyes.
Well, I see the universe, but I see no reason to think that the universe was created intentionally by a god or anything.
Gentlemen, are you ready to meet your panel?
Let's do it.
So that they can, because I know all of them back there have a lot of big questions for you guys. And I think we're going to be able to dig out a little further where you guys left off. All right, to the panel, let's go. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, somebody's got a feedback coming in. Let me check. Okay, all right, it's not coming through now. It's good. All right, let me move some people around here. That way we're all set. Okay, so here's the rules for the open panel Q&A. So we've got Jed and Shaman who are allowed to stay unmiked right now. They can talk all they want and respond to your questions accordingly, and even have a little back and forth with each other. However, I'm going to ask everyone else to kindly mute up their mics for now. We're going to go one at a time. You get a few minutes to ask your question, go a little back and forth with our two panelists here. And then when your question has been answered, we'll move on to the next person. Now, this is meant to be respectful, kind, and meant to actually ask a question to them, and not just call them names. So you're more welcome to pass if you don't have something smart to ask, if you want, and hang tight for gauntlet mode, and then we can all go into full open floor. Once we hit gauntlet mode, we will be full open floor. You can have more fun. All right. So Clay, you were the first one back there. I knew you were going to be first one back there. I was excited to have you the first one back there. Your question to the two gentlemen, please, sir.
Yes, fantastic. And thank you, Sarah, for having us. Thank you for having the debate. Thank you, Omar, for being here. Thank you, Jed, for being here. I believe you both are very good orators. You did a really awesome job. I want to give you that full credit. You guys were awesome up here, and thank you so much. You gave us what we came for. Thank you so much. My first query is for well, first off, I also want to say as well, Jed, I appreciate you giving the ground for the reasoning that it doesn't make sense that something would come from nothing. That right there is gold. And it is something that a lot of atheists, even though you say you're agnostic atheist, that's a little bit different. Of course, I understand that. And maybe in the gauntlet mode, we might explore that too. But I appreciate that. It makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that. But I was wondering if you have ever considered the idea, and I know Omar brought this up, of this God, this creator, being the universe or inside of the universe, but ever have you considered the outside of the universe?
I mean, sure, we can consider all sorts of things, but the time to accept the claim is after there's sufficient reason to believe it. So I'm not aware that it's possible to be outside the universe because we've never been able to observe outside the universe. So I'm open to the possibility of there being a God outside the universe, inside the universe, one with the universe, if that can be sufficiently demonstrated to be the case.
Yep. And I appreciate that. And it's the agnostic in you to consider it. And so that's very good. And so essentially the next question, again, would it be worth labeling it if it was so, or if the consideration of it was so? Like if I considered what it could possibly be, would it be worth labeling it as such a thing as perhaps God, a creator? I know Omar gave a few names. A lot of people give a few names. Would it be worthwhile to name such a thing?
I think if our definition of God strays too far away from the typical use of the word, then labeling it as God only creates confusion. So if God is anything other than a thinking agent, then I tend to have issues with that particular definition of God because it serves to only confuse people's communication because so many people use the God label to describe a thinking agent who not only created the universe, but has thoughts of its own.
Okay,
and
very
the time,
good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep, and I do understand that, and I've heard that point in the past as well. So the idea of being able to understand things is probably important to most people. Maybe some, obviously, the exceptions, we don't really count them, where they're considered idiots. They're not real. They're not really using their mind. But you said during the debate that if we can't understand it, then we can't know it. But that is definitionally wrong, where knowing a thing means that you are on par with the axiom, whereas understanding means that you can't possibly know it. So you have understanding that there's a possibility that there's some other answer. Would you agree with that or not?
You said that if we have understanding, then we can't know that it's the case. That seems a little I don't think I agree with that.
Okay, fair enough. So just a quick little back and forth on that.
Yeah.
So definitionally, to understand something, you could literally just flip the two words there, stand under, to not have a full knowledge of it, to not really truly have the axiom. You believe it's true. In fact, the Gnostics had a reasoning that they would come to knowledge based on their understanding, and they would accept a premise, whereas that is still just a belief. Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah, when we get into the difference of the words like understand and know, one thing I'll point out is I don't think we can be absolutely certain about really much of anything. Possibly, I've said in the past, I can be certain that my own mind exists. I think that's probably the safest thing. If I could be certain about anything, it's probably that. But
Thank God.
I think that as far as knowledge goes and understanding and beliefs, everything really falls on a spectrum, and that there might not actually be a difference between know and understand, where our level of understanding ends with knowledge, where that's the peak of understanding. That's understanding something to the maximal degree. And, there's just varying levels of understanding below that.
And I 100% would agree with that. And of course, again, I love the agnostic in you. I appreciate it. Excellent interlocutor. And I've got one more for Omar.
Yes, sir.
And that would
What's up, Clay?
What's up, brother, man? So in reference to the belief itself, right? So everybody has all these different beliefs of what God is, right? And probably you are closer to my view of what God is, even though I have a Christian belief. You have a very close...
your God the Father and my would be the same. You have he's the same guy. You have a bitheistic mediator between the two that you utilize. Exactly. And I don't reject Jesus's existence or anything like that. I'm just saying that I don't believe in Messiah's saviors because it takes our direct connection, but you get it.
Yep, absolutely. And I appreciate your view as well as anybody else's that has views similar to yours. But my question to you is, can we all believe the exact same thing on these issues? Or can two people, I should say, can two people believe the exact same thing?
Yes, but from only on the highest level possible in mutual explanations. Like the Muslims say, you can only explain God by what it's not, right? Which is like profound. It's a profound statement, right? He said no. I say Muslim, everyone goes, but it's profound enough. And so I would say that, so at the time of Paul, I'm going to tap into the,
Absolutely.
So at the time of Paul, right? So Paul is a Roman citizen, Greek speaking, highly educated Pharisee, right?
Yes,
but he wasn't only, because he was what's considered a Merkaba mystic. And that's pre-Kabbalistic, what we now call Kabbalistic seeker. That's what they were called in the first century Judaism. They were the occultists of their time in the form of like the secret society, so to speak, right? Yeah. And so their concept is something what we would refer today as bitheism. And so the bitheistic perspective was they would study Enoch, and they would study, which was not canonized even to Judaism, by the way, but yet he is 7 down from Adam and the grandfather, right? And there's a point. So they would study Enoch. I think there's a mystery inside of Enoch that we're missing. And if we only figure that out, then we'll understand how Jacob made the ladder.
Yes.
Right. Yes. And so that's Merkaba mysticism. That's Kabbalah. That's trying to explain the ladder. And so Jesus is a mediator in between that, or angels would be the way they looked at Elohim. They had Yahweh as their main Elohim, and all the other Elohim that translated to God and angels.
Yeah.
And
regardless of whether they realize it or not, that is the history of Judaism.
That's the truth. That's the truth of it. And the identical worship of Baal to Yahweh is identical. And if you look at we'll
exchange one for another.
Yeah, they copy and paste. I would say yes up here. But the way people are going to explain
the way they
the
get
steps in the ladder is a different thing. And I don't have any disagreement. So when I talk for my organization, the Universal Theognostic Society, we utilize any and all things as stories to help people speak your language, to understand the goal is to have the direct connection and understand that everything else is a tool. Whether it's a person or whether it's a plant, it's all a tool.
It's a tool, right? To get to wherever it is that understanding, or even possibly knowledge.
Understanding is there. So it's a philosophical lens to be able to understand by looking at anything, whether we're talking about Odin, what doesn't make it.
But I want to bring it back real quick, just a real quick one. So the idea that we can believe the exact same thing, I don't actually believe that. I don't see us being able to. Not one single human being can believe the exact same thing another human being believes, because of the very simple fact that we have a
I see what you mean.
Mind. So,
and I agree, but that's why I wouldn't say it doesn't have to do with belief with the mind. It would have to do with the understanding in the soul.
Reality,
with the understanding of existence itself through the soul, the human spirit, which we call the soul. That is and we don't need words for that one.
No, we don't. Nope.
It would be a feeling.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Omar. Thank you, Jed. And thank you, Sarah.
Absolutely.
Jed
Great
wants
questions.
to throw up now.
Great questions, Clay. Wonderful questions. Anchor Baby is taking his pass. Spin would like to just reserve his seat for the gauntlet. So
yes, I think I'm going to take a pass.
Effigy, if you would like to ask your question, please.
What's up, everybody?
How's it going?
Fun talk. Very chill. Omar, I got a few questions for you because I'm mostly on Jed's side here. But first off, I'd like to say just because you take a bunch of hallucinogens doesn't mean you end up thinking like you. I'm living proof of that.
I never said anything about hallucinogens.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't. Name one.
Ayahuasca.
That's an entheogen, not a hallucinogen. You know the difference? I can explain it very fast.
I mean, the only difference is that someone uses it as a part of like a sacrament or medicine, and you're considered that.
No. The scientific explanation, as far as Cambridge University, they say a hallucinogen is a substance, whether it's natural like a mushroom or LSD, that the substance that affects the brain is foreign to the brain. An entheogen is the active ingredient to the brain is in the body already. Therefore, ayahuasca is an entheogen because DMT is already in our body, and LSD or psilocybin is not. So there's an entheogen and a hallucinogen. I wasn't referring to any hallucinogens, nor do I recommend that necessarily. Although I'm not against it, like mushrooms and whatever. But ultimately, Effigy, I would say you should stick to the natural stuff. You shouldn't be taking LSD and think you're going to figure out the keys to the fucking universe.
One thing
I don't think you should be taking any kind of substance and thinking you're going to pick up the keys to the universe. But I have a few questions for you because number one, you seem to be wiggling around away from a definition just because the definition locks you into specific positions. Everything you're telling me, Omar, puts you in the camp of a panentheist, someone who believes that God is the universe and beyond. And I'm not sure why you keep kind of leaning over into kind of like theist rhetoric for it, because every time you actually nail down what you actually think, you're not theist at all in any sense. Like maybe you could no, I don't feel like you are at all. Like you're straight saying panentheist things.
Let me ask you this because I don't actually. So, but when we say theist, right? Because every time someone says theist, my mind immediately goes to some form of like Abrahamic personification of a supreme deity in the form of human traits, like legs to walk and so on. Is that what you mean by theist?
Something that is a separate, complete entity unto itself. Pantheism is that the universe is God, and panentheism is that the universe, God is the universe is contained within God, but God supersedes the universe. So you're not in any
spell
way
it for
theist.
me. You're pantheist or panentheist? What is this?
Panen, just add an en. PANENTHEIST.
So can I say panentheist? I've never heard this one before. It's a God is within everything and everything exists within God, but God also transcends you. Yeah, sure. I'm a panentheist. Awesome. I had no idea. I've literally never heard that before.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
And there are a few questions that kind of follow along with panentheism.
Are there a lot of people? And is there an organized panentheist religion right now that I can look up, or should I start one?
You can try to start one. I get it's kind of like what you were saying, whereas that everyone has kind of their own idea of what it is, right? So it's kind of hard to the idea of a community of people is usually that they're agreeing on a singular definition, and this just kind of doesn't fall into that.
Yeah, in order to be a cult, you'd have to have something. So we'd have to I'd have to be like the supreme deity that through me you can experience the universe as God, or I'd have to have some sort of substance that unifies everyone, right? Otherwise, it's not a proper cult.
So does the idea of what you're talking about change and grow with the universe, or is its essence unchanging?
Well, I would say that every single component is a part of the creation and the existence that's interconnected, that the existence itself grounds it all together, and the interwoven fabric that exists outside of material. So even thoughts continue to exist. So I didn't get into I didn't even talk about energy or energetic body or thoughts or things. I kind of stayed away. As soon as you said alchemy was like some heresy, and I stayed away from the interwoven fabrics that would connect everything together. But there is another half of my perspective that would intermingle it together. That actually doesn't even necessarily have to do with the soul. It has to do with,
so you're saying that the processes of existence in the universe add to this concept of a panentheistic God.
Add to, you could say in one way, I would say more exists within, because I think ultimately on the big scale of it all, I think that it would bypass existence itself would bypass time. It would be like one existence on the highest level.
Well,
from our perspective, it would add
is
to,
literally defined by time.
Yeah, I mean, not metaphysically though.
There is no existence without time.
No, there's
it's
no
not existence if it's outside of time. No. Time is an integral part of the fabric of the universe. It is not a thing that it's moving through. It's part of space time.
Agreed.
It's
You're right.
part of the fabric.
I agree. No, I agree with what you. I agree fully with what you just said. Time is an integral part of the universal existence and existence within the universe. I'm saying that what I'm talking about with God transcends all matter and space, which is the definition of the universe. If the entire universe would implode or explode, so hey, let me tell you let me add the word soul and spirit in here. My ultimate statement is that if you were to remove the dark matter, which is called the ma'at, which is the interconnecting substance from which possibility and light can even be conceived upon, that's why there's nothing, and everything in the universe, all matter and space, would implode into what we described earlier as a singularity, the only thing that would exist was the essence or the eternal life, which we would refer to as our soul, as a part of this eternal life. So I believe there is an eternal existence that we can only define in our perspective as a human soul, but there is a universal substance of eternality that has nothing to do with matter. That's ultimately what I mean by God. But in its material form, in any form, it exists within and permeates through all existence in the form of universe, which is perceived through time and space. Does that A to B, A to Z, Z to A? Get it?
No, at some point it just starts sounding like woo. It just starts sounding like the people who are trying to sell you crystals and that kind of stuff, because it just seems like you're just stringing words.
So I'm saying that what you said about the universe and panentheism, yes.
So how is this any different than just a deistic perspective of the clockmaker of the universe runs? Why would I even bring up this God if every explanation I have is just fine without even bringing it into the picture?
I don't understand. What's the question about a clockmaker?
Well, like a deist, someone who believes there is a personal God, but the God does not interfere with the universe at all. How is your perspective any different than the deistic perspective in the fact that there's nothing to interfere with the universe because it is the universe? Therefore, why are we even talking about it? Because it just is the is.
I'm not familiar with that perspective. That sounds like a that sounds like a nihilistic perspective. I don't agree with that. That's not my perspective. Because then why would I even be having this conversation if I thought that?
Well, what's the point of believing in a God that, doesn't really do anything if you're just like, oh, it just exists outside of everything and is everything. Therefore, there's really nothing. I'm not going to do anything different tomorrow because it's just, God God is the trees in the air, and
got it. Well, I did
it's not a
mention
personal God, therefore it's not going to listen to me. It doesn't do anything in the world because it's everything. It is the world. Whatever the world is doing, that's what God is doing.
Yeah, that's super nihilistic. That's not my perspective at all.
Well, it's your perspective, not mine.
Let's start wrapping it up.
No. So effigy. I believe in the human spirit, that we collectively have an experience of having a human spirit, of which we call the soul. Therefore, my perspective of my grounding experience in this body is my breath. My breath is a materialization of my essence, and the essence is a part of my soul that exists forever. Okay, so whatever if you call that deist, that's fine. Okay,
it's poetry. That's really all that was just poetry. I mean, it was beautiful, but yeah.
I'm not even reading it. This is why I feel now. Everything else that we're talking about,
but you didn't say anything concrete. You just said pretty words.
I made a statement and a claim about a soul, and then the human soul, which would be the human spirit collectively. All of us right now have an eternal life that we're perceiving in this material. The grounding reality between the actuality and the reality exists because of the breath or the essence in this framework, this body, right? And so I'm saying there's a highly spiritual component to where we are right now. It's just that I didn't touch on it out of respect for Jed. I moved outside of the spiritual component. He already said he doesn't believe in a soul. So for me to spend 2 hours arguing about the soul is a non sequitur, and in essence is kind of what it turns into me. Might as well just argue about Muhammad, in that case. So I left out half of my belief system. But yes, I do believe ultimately in this definition of pantheism. Yes. But there's a difference between the eternal life in the form of that moves into life. So like I'm a human right now. Could I materialize into a fucking tree at some point or any of those things? I'd say it leaned more towards that being a yes than it being a no. So that therefore a spirit must exist before me. I must have existed in a spiritual form before, now, and after. Does that clarify more?
It seems to me you're using ill-defined words to define other ill-defined words, but I'll leave it there.
But I was just talking in poetry, though. But before I was talking in poetry, the next statement is
that's what I'm saying. When you go from like soul to essence to I can't remember what the other word is, but it just seems like a series of ill-defined words. Essence.
The soul is
it's ill-defined words defining other ill-defined words.
Because we're doing it in 10 seconds, buddy. We're doing it in 5 seconds.
Let's hold.
I agree.
Let's put a pin in that one for the gauntlet, and that way we can move on and let some other people ask questions, and maybe that will shake itself out as well.
And if Effigy wants to have, we can have the conversation about soul or no soul. I have that. I would love to have that.
Okay.
That'd be amazing.
All right. And Santa, Mr. Andrew, to you, would you like to ask your question? I think you'd probably be going for Jed, wouldn't you? I think you're going for Jed.
Yeah, because I'm naturally more disposed to Omar. I liked Jed's presentation. However, I want to clarify that causal in science, that I gave you a definition. Causal means that it can be mapped back to a discrete cause. In your question, Omar, you said, well, life can't come from life, and there's a scientific word for it called abiogenesis. So I encourage you to sharpen your sword on that.
Now, say it again. Life cannot come from life?
Yeah, no life from without life, previous life.
No, I said nothing. Something cannot come from nothing, and we were speaking universally. I wasn't.
You said. I encourage you to look back at it, because I noted when you said that life has to come from life, or words like that. If nothing can come from something, I encourage you to also look at the scientific definition of nothing, because it's not the same as our common use of the word nothing. Literally, the word nothing means no little things in Latin. So our common use is more accurate. However, Jed was also accurate that Lawrence Krauss is saying that all of these things came from the potential, no longer called a singularity, the potentials that were radiating in a big fuzzy thingy that they no longer cause a singularity. And we might refer to it in the common tongue as energy. But after those energies have made planets and done whatever they've done, I encourage you to look up abiogenesis. What I was looking at in the
real quick, it says nothing is strictly, it says complete absence of anything whatsoever. No matter, no energy, no space, no time, no law, no fields. Yeah, there's no such thing.
I could repeat myself, but if you listened, I said our understanding of that word now is true to the Latin definition. However, scientists, which are the ones you're really debating with, have a different definition for what nothing is.
So I don't believe in, so the same way that I'm not allowing the Catholic Church to create new definitions of just because someone uses Greek and takes two Greek root words that have no comparison in any Greek writings ever, and in 357 AD decide to merge them together and tell me I'm stupid. Science.
I encourage you to fight with them. I'm a Taoist. I think you guys should use less jargon. I'm not arguing for jargon.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well,
I'm not arguing for jargon. You know, like effigy to find what a panentheist to a panentheist, and I'm going, no, we're not all deists.
Yeah, I never heard that word before. Again, but I'm not
it's a really good word, but there's a denotation. Sorry to talk over you.
No problem.
There is a denotation and a connotation, and I would like to give a small example.
Please.
Are these two exactly the same, panel? Boy, I love ice cream, and boy, I love my life partner. Are we saying the same thing? No.
Well, I don't know. I just had some ice cream earlier, and it was pretty good.
Okay.
I'm looking to order some ice cream right now as we speak. No, we're not saying the same thing.
Right. And what I found interesting, I loved you and Jed, because after some ham-hawing and arguing over what words, and everybody thinks this word and that word, you guys came down to the classical argument. The classical argument from Jed is, I don't feel the need to name something that we don't observe. And you're saying, but I've experienced these things, I've observed these things, and I have a name for that. That's the classical argument where it breaks. Am I mistaken?
I wasn't saying because I've had ayahuasca ceremonies and been in 2 comas. I'm not saying because of those things I believe God exists. I'm saying that I understand that the human mind. No. I said regardless of how creative the human mind can be, I have experienced things that are inconceivable. Like, this is a very powerful word.
Okay.
Inconceivable. There's no way that I can explain or create the idea of experiencing the universe created or seeing myself for 2.5 days looking down. There's absolutely no way.
But
that was not why I said I believe God exists. That's how I know something that we cannot see exists.
Okay.
And even that is just a ladder, so to speak, going to
bro,
my
I'm
ultimate
setting
point.
you up. I just want to make sure you know I'm setting you up. Because if you Google the God helmet, you will see how low magnetic fields around different places on the skull create God and supernatural-like experiences. You might want to read up on it, because any true atheist, which I agree, Jed's nice as an atheist, will really hit you there, because the brain experiences it only with endogenous chemicals.
My brother, if a guy decides to cut his penis off and call himself a woman, is he a woman?
No.
Okay.
How is that related? That's
you can create whatever helmet you want.
Every time you get faced with facts and science, you run for the hills and describe something else.
I'm not running anywhere. You're describing a helmet that you can create, which sounds like a virtual reality experience, and that has absolutely.
Why don't you look it up and argue from information instead of opinion? I'm giving you the scientific studies repeated.
You're telling me that there's a helmet that you can put on and experience God. Therefore, God's not real.
I didn't do the therefore.
Because
I literally did not have the therefore.
So then, what are you talking about this helmet for? I don't understand.
I said you should learn about it, because your premise was, I experienced these things, I can't explain them, and so therefore they were supernatural.
That was my.
I'm saying you might want to read that the brain can be influenced.
Supernatural means some form of a spirit outside of yourself.
Right. So does metaphysical.
No, it doesn't. You can have a metaphysical experience yourself. You're describing supernaturals outside of you.
And what does metaphysical mean?
Spiritual
outside the normal experience.
Spiritual experience would be inside of you.
No, I didn't say shit about spiritual.
You said
See,
supernatural.
once again, you go to some little cubby hole.
Once again, three times, three claims, all three you're making claims I didn't say. You said supernatural, and I'm explaining to you I never said anything about supernatural. Supernatural is
you said, but therefore
Santa,
supernatural.
You're being a bad Santa right now. Supernatural is there's a ghost over there. A ghost
I'm
over
more than
there
happy
is
to review it.
A ghost over there is supernatural.
I'm more than happy to review my potential error. Are you willing to look into the God's helmet?
I never
to
said
see
the
where
word
you're
spiritual. I'm taking notes of everything that you said, except for the guy of the study of something you both mentioned. I don't know what.
God's helmet, and then E equals MC squared. Energy can translate back and forth to energy. I think you guys resolved that one. Now, one of the things that I was surprised that I wasn't normally on your side over is the fact that your argumentation demanded that Jed meet you halfway somewhere. Over and over again, you're using that, hey, just trust me, bro. I had these experiences. Just trust me, bro. I had these shamanic.
You're really hung up on you're really hung up on that. That's why I was trying to move on. His explanation for
answer it. I'm not hung up. I'm just looking for an explanation then.
That's all you're talking about. It was like 2 minutes of the thing, which I kept canceling.
Hang up means I'm stuck on something that I can't get past. I'm asking why you in a debate are using, I had the experience, just trust me, bro. When it's supposed to be a debate about whether or not.
Let me answer your question, but let me ask Jed a question. Sure. Jed, do you feel that in the debate, my argument was just trust me, bro?
Well, when it comes to anecdotal evidence, like personal experiences, near-death experiences, the only thing I can possibly go off of is your word. And like I said, I'm happy to accept that you had an experience and are trying to accurately portray it to the best of your ability. I see no reason to think that you're lying. But when it comes to whether you're using your experience, your near-death experience or your coma experience as evidence for God, it did seem as though you were saying your experience that you had an NDE or that you saw yourself from the corner of the hospital room is evidence that there's something beyond the physical because you couldn't explain
specifically
it
with something
way.
That the mind, something that's inconceivable to the mind, specifically my mind, and that was the premise. So the point was, so hold on, bro. Let me finish one more sentence. So when we was talking about the mind, I said I have experienced things that are inconceivable with medicine, taking something, and with not, right? And the whole premise is that I had my experience and I have my conclusion. I shared an experience. He had his conclusion. Where is trust me, bro, come in?
Because you said when you understand, you're only reading half of the book. You talked over and over again about transcendental. I'm answering your question.
No,
I'm answering your question.
He didn't say
to you, you're only reading
24 words of a 500. You can't take a 500 page. Half of the book, the other half of the book is my reference to spirituality, which he rejects the soul. So that's what you're talking about. It's half of my book.
You decided to do that. You asked me how, and I'm answering how. He didn't demand these things out of you. You demand that he take your proof and just go, trust me, bro. Okay.
Yeah, trust me, bro. That's exactly my argument. It was all. It was a whole night of trust me, bro.
He said it nicer. He said it much nicer. I wish I could communicate as he does, but he said, "Yeah, you did kind of say trust me, bro."
Okay. On the whole argument, in the whole argument, on the whole debate, or in the one subject about personal experience. That's the question to you, Santa.
Well, the whole you had like 7 items. I'm sorry that I didn't document them. Would you like them documented?
No, name a second one. There's so many. Name a second one, because all I understand is
I did name a second one. You were just talking over it. But let me look at my notes. You were referring to the mystery and assigning a name to it, while Jed repeated 2 to 3 different times that he felt no need to assign to the mystery. And then you say,
that's the entire debate.
I'm answering your question. As you cited with, no. I know you just yell over people when they're answering your question because you got caught.
That's
You
the
got
entire.
caught.
Oh, I got
That's
caught
all you
arguing
got
my
caught.
half of the debate.
I'm with you on the side of spiritual stuff,
God.
and you got caught.
Arguing God. You kept saying
Here,
God.
here.
Bro.
I was taking notes because I'm like, oh,
Those
Mark,
look like
come on,
chicken
you're better
scratch.
than
Those
this,
like
man.
incoherent piecings together.
Yeah,
All right, let's put
You
a
should
pin
stay
in
awake
that
the whole time
one.
next time.
Let's put a pin in that one, and I think a speed date is coming up between the two of you pretty soon. Thank you, Santa. We appreciate you. Yes, we love you so much, and he brings us presents every year, so we really love him. Captain Skeleton Man, welcome, sir, my friend. You're welcome to unmute yourself and ask the question or give the comment that you would like to ask.
Thank you guys very much for having me. Peace be with you all. I was listening intently to what everyone was saying, and I must have to say, perception is the key to everything. Just because you think you know something, whether it's anecdotal, for instance, can I extrapolate from the anecdotal and learn something that is empirical evidence as truth, such as a book? Yes. So perception is key. If you stay walking only here on earth and you've never left it, you can't have a perception of something that could exist. Just because you don't know it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Omar, I liked what you were saying when you were talking about the oneness of God, and you were talking about a father and then another type being that come into existence. But I wanted to ask you, are you in the understanding of the Mayim, the actual meaning of the Mayim, the actual meaning of spirit or the Ruach of the Hebrew, and to understand it? Yeah, the Ruach, the Mayim. Yeah.
What's
okay,
Mayin, though? I've never heard that. What's Mayin?
Mayim, M-A-Y-I-M. They call it the water, when the spirit moves across the water. And you were talking earlier about a male, a masculine, and a feminine, in the sense that even within creation, there's always a masculine and feminine. Even if you're asexual, you're still carrying the masculine and the feminine, even within the plant and animal kingdom. So in the Torah, in the first evidence of understanding of writing about God, 1200 BC, when we first started learning of heretics through the Egyptian hieroglyphs, Moses wrote this very specifically to get people to understand something. The God is one, just like with Adam. Just because you can't see Eve doesn't mean that Eve was not in him. He extrapolated her out of him. The same way that when the spirit moves across the water in the Hebrew word is feminine. The Ruach is a masculine, even though they're trying to change it today. AI is changing the Resh, the letter of the Resh and the letter. They're trying to change these laws. Don't change the alphabet because you're going to
You mean like
things.
the Hey? The Hey is the Shekhinah.
Yeah, well, they're trying to change the letter, meaning they're trying to say that Ruach is a feminine now. So even within
the Ruach has always been masculine. The Mayim
always
is water, which is feminine.
Always has been, but
and
now
look, combined together is how the essence is. That would the combining of that would be essence.
Yeah. So when you look at Google up Ruach, and now you're going to find Google saying it's a feminine word. That's what I'm saying.
I didn't understand your pronunciation. Ruach is the Ruach is the wind or the spirit, and the Mayin
the HaKadosh.
Yeah, Kadesh is yes, but the Mayim is the waters, and so when the spirit and the waters merge, this in essence is how essence in the form of life, because we're water also. So
well, no. Again, that's a different kind of water.
Yeah,
a different kind of water.
No, I know you're talking about the eternal waters. I know what you're talking about. I'm very familiar with.
No, we call it what we call it in NASA. We would call it the dust. So within the materialistic, just because you can't see
Captain, remember we were arguing the existence of God, and as soon as he says he doesn't believe in the soul, he doesn't believe in the spirit, and then I even asked him about essence. So I moved on into and I don't want to drill him on something that he doesn't believe in. I want to have a conversation and talk to someone and walk the entire way speaking with someone. I wasn't trying to necessarily win an argument by bringing.
Well, the thing is perception. Again, back to perception. Perception is key. What does spirit mean? What does soul mean? If you are in a theological setting, These people have defined these words for you in religion, and you're following such things that may have fallacy. So a soul is not a spirit. Soul is what you put in the world called work. That's what's judged. So the work that you put out is your soul. People have misconstrued this word in religion and calling it's a spirit. No, soul is not spirit at all. Your spirit is what creates in the vessel a work that produces a soul to you, whether it's good or bad. You know a tree by its fruit.
No, it's a very beautiful way of saying it for sure. But if it would be like A, B, C, like letters, that's B. A, the soul is the self. In Hebrew, your soul, your soul. And we're talking Hebrew now. We're talking biblical Hebrew. The soul is the living being. The Hebrew version of soul is the living being or beingness that comes to life as a human.
No, that's incorrect. But what I'm telling you, perception is key. So just because a scholar comes along and tells you something, I suggest you don't listen to it. You follow it for what it says. Don't change the letter of the law. That's key. Because every letter, if I bring it up for you, I'll show you. Every letter in the Hebrew alphabet contains meaning to it. Because there's pictograph and hieroglyph before we created alphabet. So we start changing alphabet around to produce agenda for people.
You're getting into a Hebrew, what we call today Jewish argument, and I don't.
That's false. I don't believe in the word Jew exists. Jew is a Yehudite. Okay.
That's why I went like this.
So
did you see me go like this?
I'm just saying. Don't even bring that word up around me. I'm a Pashtun, by the way. I'm a real Israelite. I'm from the tribe of Levi.
Then look at I'm Omar Ahmadzai, brother.
Okay, so you understand what I'm saying. So I don't even care for that. I'm just explaining to you that I'm talking about something else. All right, you're changing my subject.
No,
a masculine and a feminine exist. If you go within religion today of theology, they have taught you so many lies in all religion, including Islam. When they say Allah takes up no sons, the word Allah just means the God. You misconstrued it. You don't write it the way Moses wrote it. He wrote it 3 ways, and they have 3 meanings. Elohim means 7 spirits. For Jeb up here, 7 spirits without life itself, you can't make an argument or even experience anything. So if you say that there's no such thing as
70 Elohim,
there's 7 spirits that create the Elohim. That's called the many. There's 7 spirits. And here's the 7 spirits for every atheist to understand. Life itself is the 1. Counsel is number 2. Knowledge, understanding, wisdom, power, and fear of the Lord. When you get all of these together and align with your body, then you can absolutely have an empirical truth that you can extrapolate from anything to find truth within it. All things are knowable.
Together, though, but you
don't need drugs to know the truth. I'll just tell you that. You don't need drugs to experience reality. No, I'm just telling you, I'm just saying, listen to what I'm saying to you. You don't need drugs to experience, perhaps you understand, DMT is inside you. So I don't need to ingest DMT to experience what it is.
Yeah, Shaman.
Okay? It's not a strongman argument. It's a fact. DMT is created within your own body.
I can't hear over. Hold on. When you both are talking, hold on.
And arguing with yourself.
He's talking more than I am, and I thought I had the floor.
Hold on. You're all I'm saying is that you're both going at the same time. And
I didn't come here to have someone try to preach Hebrew Bible to me and have a half understanding of it.
I studied linguistics at Harvard and Yale.
Well, then you
I have a PhD in this. And this is the problem in the world. Certain religious organizations have come out and they have lied. They have lied about the truth.
Hold on, Shaman. Hold on.
So who do you think you're yelling at? You said Ruach and Mayim. Those are 2 things. You say 1. Then you say Elohim, there's 7.
Allah takes up no sons. The word Allah should be Adonai Elohim. The Son of God has no sons. I just corrected Islam for you.
I'm not Muslim.
Because if a scribe writes something wrong, your perception of the truth is
Your
going to be
perception
off.
Of me is wrong. I'm not Muslim, asshole.
You understand? Perception is key to knowing something. And if you refuse the perception and you follow blindly in anybody's way, you can get lost on the path to truth.
For me, and then clear up
That's
Hinduism.
all
I'm
I'm saying. I studied all of them. I studied all of it, though. But you're not letting me finish.
You said
he's not letting me finish.
Shut up, both of you. I'm not going to let either of you finish because you both keep talking over each other, and I can't hear any of it. So it's all hogwash at this point. So we're going to move on to the next person. Maybe give you guys some time to calm down, and maybe at the gauntlet you can get through a better.
I'm calm. He's upset, Sarah. That's all.
This guy's yelling loud as shit. Move your microphone.
Responses. I didn't ask for either of you to respond to me. Thank you.
Frankly, I run my own channel. I could give a shit less about you.
Okay.
There it is.
You're pathetic. That
I still didn't ask either of you to respond. Okay. American, if you'd like to get to your question, please. And thank you everyone for your patience. Go ahead, American. You got to unmute and then go ahead.
Which American?
He left.
Oh, I think
he just has connection issues sometimes.
Yeah, he had a lot on my panel last night, sir.
That's okay. Yeah, he's back. He's back. All right. Go ahead, American, with your question.
Hey, real quick, Sarah, this is the problem. It went over everyone's head. He mentioned apples.
Hold on. I'm not worried about that.
I have to clarify the reason why I was fighting back.
I'm not. It's American's turn now, who's been patiently waiting for like an hour at this rate. I'd like to not worry about the guy who just rage quit off the panel and got pissy. I'd rather move on to somebody who has a question. Go ahead, American.
Okay. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. The point of the panel is, God versus no God, right? In the old, one little thing that I've been cooking up in my brain the last couple of months, scientists will say that humans are made up of the universe, right? Like everything in the universe is made up of the same thing, right? Humans are conscious. We're conscious, sentient beings, right? And we're part of the universe. So on some level, the universe is self-aware. Has anybody thought of that?
Yeah, I don't think you're the first person to think of that. And it is true in some sense that we are the universe experiencing itself, where we're made of the universe.
So now, would the universe delete itself?
That was God.
Well, I wouldn't say, sorry, repeat that question, American.
Would the universe delete itself? Like, for example, if the universe is self-aware, for example, because we are part of the universe, we are stardust, as Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I spoke with last night on Coast to Coast AM. We're stardust floating through the universe, a careless, uncaring, unknowing universe. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we're aware and we are the universe. So how is it that the universe is unaware and uncaring and unknowing?
Yeah, let's be careful not to conflate the whole universe with small parts of the universe. We're small parts of the universe. We're like ants on a rock floating around in a giant space. And while we care about things, we have emotions, desires, we want to live.
Well, that's like saying the whole body is not the human eye, but the human eye can observe the whole body.
Right.
And we're all integrated and part of the same thing. The entirety of what science says, everything in all of existence was at one single point before the Big Bang and then expanded. So, and then that gets into quantum theory, what Einstein says, spooky action at a distance. And it suggests that there is a deeper integration, that there is no real distance between things, because in an expanded bit, there is no distance in that bit. There is only perception of distance. So everything is interconnected. if you go down onto the absolute basic quark level, quantum level of everything in existence, do you know what everything is? Little tiny indentations and flashes of light. So I'm just saying, when you get into like quantum entanglement, you could have one particle that is a billion miles from a particle that is quantum entangled with each other, and what you do to one affects the other instantaneously across that entire distance. And so that suggests that there is some sort of substrate that connects everything in the universe instantaneously.
All right.
So
does that
what
mean
I'm
God
saying is that provides the evidence that intelligence does exist inside of a physical universe, or at least in and around what we consider the physical universe. I mean, we have mind. We're part of the entirety of the universe.
Just because there's a cause and effect relationship between different parts of matter in space doesn't mean that the universe itself is aware or is a mind. And I think you may also be committing the composition fallacy, which is to attribute qualities of a piece of the whole to the whole itself. So just because humans have intelligence and have a mind doesn't mean the universe has intelligence or a mind. We can't take characteristics.
Oh, yeah, it's like saying my body doesn't have intelligence or a mind.
Your body is
my mind has a mind. My brain sits inside of my skull, and you could say that that's a human sitting inside of a planet, and that planet sits inside of a galaxy, and that galaxy sits inside of a universe.
You can't say that the universe has a mind because the universe contains people with minds.
Yeah, but that's a category error. He's making a metaphysical claim and even pointing out that science can prove the existence of that claim, and you're saying like
he's conflating individual minds with one giant mind that the whole universe has or shares. That's the problem.
Okay,
but if you
I want to get this straight. Your position is that nothing created everything.
No,
my position is that
over and over, I don't believe
God created everything.
I don't believe that the universe was created. I'm not convinced there's ever been nothing. I'm fine
okay. So let's not use the word created. Let's use the word came into existence.
Sorry, you were talking.
Everything came into existence. Everything came into existence from nothing, which is the standard materialistic atheist platform to speak from.
I'd be really surprised if you could find any atheists that believe that. And that's certainly not my view, that nothing, I'm not convinced nothing has ever existed. I'm fine with the idea that the universe itself is eternal or cyclical in some way.
An ordered, self-aware, at least parts of it self-aware universe. And your position specifically is that it's perpetual.
I'm fine with the idea that it's perpetual. I'm not necessarily making that claim, but I will say I'm not convinced that the parts of the universe, us, that are conscious, are eternal. I think that we're finite and that we've only existed for the last, or I should say life forms have only existed for the last couple billion years on Earth. But at the very beginning of our local presentation of the universe, certainly there was no life or intelligent life anywhere, and no minds or consciousness.
And one thing that I really wanted to point out, by the way,
Jed. That's a powerful claim, Jed. That's a powerful claim that you're saying that minds and consciousness didn't exist over the course of X billion years until we came.
No, I never said that. I never gave a quantifier of time of how long after the universe life popped into existence. I said life has existed for the last, 4 billion years. And I have no idea how much time passed between the beginning of the universe, our local presentation of the universe, and the first abiogenesis event. I have no idea how much time passed. Maybe it was a couple million years, maybe it was billions of years. Who knows? I have no idea.
Does the universe exist if someone can't?
Local presentation of the universe, there was no life.
So if something is not there to observe the universe, does it exist? There's a big scientific conversation about that, right? If there's no observer,
no one's there to hear it. Did it actually make?
Yeah. The observer, like if there's no observer, does something exist? So, and if we say no, then something had to always exist to observe that which we're calling the universe existing for billions of years.
And,
I'm not
and Jed,
you need an observer in order.
And I'm probably not alone in thinking this. The painting behind you, Adam, the reaching out and touching the tentacle of the flying spaghetti monster, which is originally supposed to be Yahweh. If you can openly, so people like to say that Islam is the religion of peace, and then they'll bash Christians. Did you know that if you took that same painting, but you replaced Adam with Muhammad, and then you took Allah and you put the flying spaghetti monster, there would literally be thousands of Muslims that would be trying to murder you right now?
Oh,
but
cool. Well, in
because
that case, I should do
Christianity
that.
is actually the religion of peace,
Well, no,
we
so
ignore
I
it.
have no issue pissing
something-
off Muslims. I've
something
made videos
fundamentally-
chastising Islam and calling Muhammad a PDF file. I've got no issue with that.
Something being created and something being applied are two different things. So I don't think that Christianity in the form of Jesus or Islam in the form of Muhammad or any of these were religions of war or whatever the case may be. I think if you point one and what was done with them after is completely different. If you want to get real biblical, Muhammad was fulfilling the prophecy of the entire land of Canaan would worship the one God of Abraham. That's all his entire wars were done in the lands of Canaan with pagans. And after he died, his guys went and started conquering all the places. If you look at his actual, so I mean, I'm pretty familiar with all of them.
They expanded his war afterwards. I know, but Muhammad with his followers conquered the Arabian Peninsula while he was still alive, slaughtering tens of thousands.
Yes. In Genesis 49:10, that promise to Abraham, and we became Avram to Abraham. The last guy who was on here would understand this. When Avram became Avraham, when the Hay was added to his name, he became the father of nations. And that prophecy was that the entire land of Canaan would be given to the seeds of Abraham that would worship the one God of Abraham, El Shaddai. And that was not the case in 630 AD. As a matter of fact, the majority of the lands of Canaan were pagans. And Muhammad came, got his prophecy, and fulfilled the prophecy of Genesis 49:10 in his lifetime. After that, of course it's not. But the point is that if the
Muslims that I talk to,
it's hard to say it's not. But those are people and perceptions, my brother. I'm not a Muslim, just for the record. I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Jew. So everyone starts trying to tell me the guy was trying to. Yeah,
I know. I do respect your position. I recently went to a Universalist church. I go to several different kinds of churches.
I'm not like defending Islam. I'm just saying that we have to understand what actually happened, what's actually written, and what's been done afterwards. That's all. Because then they go, oh, look at the Christians with their crusades. Well, I don't believe Jesus was telling everyone to pick up a sword, man.
Well, Christian nations were being invaded for 400 years before the first crusade by Muslim armies.
Jesus didn't even fight back for his own life, so I don't believe Jesus was telling everyone to go conquer lands either. You know what I mean? But then again,
well, those lands had previously belonged to Christians, but Muslims had conquered them.
Christians are definitely not justified in going around and slaughtering a bunch of non-combatant women and children simply because, oh, this land is ours and your ancestors 400 years ago took it from us.
If the eastern coast of the United States had been taken over by Pakistan and Iran, would you not eventually muster up a force in the western United States to take back the eastern United States? That's a really dumb position to have.
No, what you're saying is that 400 years after that happens, people who weren't there when the original event took place are now justified in killing other people who weren't responsible for it. These, in your example, those Pakistanians born in Eastern US, they were just born there. They didn't have a choice of where they were born, and they're not the ones responsible for stealing the land in the first place.
Yeah, sure. People born into a terrorist jihadist family. Oh, man, they must be innocent because they couldn't help being born.
Hold on.
Christianity is the most toxic cult on the whole planet. I'll also agree with you that Islam is certainly not a religion of peace. I like to call it a religion of piss. And Muslims get very mad when you depict their prophet in negative ways or depict their Allah character. But I've got no issue with doing any of that kind of stuff. If you go to my YouTube channel, I've got an Islam playlist with a picture of Allah's face, and he's like, no drinking water allowed. And I've got Muhammad riding a winged horse with Barack's face on it, Barack Obama, because the winged horse was actually named Barack. Fun fact. So yeah, I've got no problem making fun of Islam. That's one of my favorite things to do.
That's hilarious.
I think making fun of any of the religions is quite immature and it's silly.
You know what I think is immature is killing journalists and artists because they make articles about Islam or draw the Prophet Muhammad. I think that's immature.
So, the second part of what I was going to say is that unless you're built for the smoke, like that guy who was yelling at me, right? He said he's Pashtun. I'm Pashtun. You know where they're from? Afghanistan. So you just witnessed 2 Afghan people yelling. According to him, he's Afghan, but we found out who's really the fucking Afghan on the panel because he fucking ran like a coward. So, but the point is that we don't run. My point is, if you're built for the smoke, Jed, then expect it. But if some crazy Muslim guy that American is referring to sees your shit and thinks he's going to go to heaven with 72 virgins by taking your life, that's not good. So that's all I'm saying overall. That's all I'm saying overall, guys. We have to be very careful with things unless we want the smoke. If we want
one thing I will say is that I get way more death threats from Christians than I do from Muslims.
Interesting.
No way. You know what? I
more.
actually believe that. I actually believe that with our experience with some Christians in the space.
I don't think the solution. And I'm a person I'm a very, 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 very violent person. Okay, trust me. But the difference is that at the age of 46. Yeah, I said that on purpose for Santa. I said that for Santa, dude. I see. Look at him. He goes like this. He's like, dude, I did it, Santa. Okay. Well,
for you.
Anyway, my point is that over time I've come to learn that the goal is not to try to put out your fire; it's to turn the fire into a fucking laser. You understand? So and that's the goal here. So I love nothing more than to yell at people and yell over people like you just witnessed. I was actually, but if you took my blood pressure, it was not going up. I was just giving him what he thinks he has. I gave him what he thought he was doing, right? But you're not going to get anywhere that way. That's the problem. We're not going to get anywhere by making fun of religions.
Thank you, everyone, for the time. Sarah, the Raging Tomato, awesome name. Thank you for being the moderator. Balderson, thank you for being the host. I think the Angry American would like to speak to the American.
Oh, hold on. Let me move. We're still in order here. Actually,
oh, sorry.
We're going to do Mr. Balderson, then we'll wrap back around because Spin has finally figured out what question he wants to ask. Mr. Balderson, to you, kind sir.
That was an excellent debate, guys. What's I've found kind of hilarious through the questioning is while almost everybody that's had questions has been a theist, it's all been directed at Omar.
I noticed that too, actually.
It's funny.
Like, holy shit.
Yeah. By the way, barak in Arabic, which is a Semitic word, comes from 2 Hebrew words, which means to like receive blessing on the knee. So that's how Jesus prayed, by the way. That's where that fucking word came from, guys. Good job. You're disrespecting Jesus now.
I don't know. They sound like weird sand people. Did you
fucking Viking? You fucking Viking boat lover.
Clip it and ship it.
By the way, also just to let you know, there's less than 10% of deserts in Afghanistan. There's no fucking sand, so that's the best part. But yeah, those are all we are talking. We're talking about
all these other people you're talking about.
We're talking about sand people. We're talking about dudes in the Arab deserts.
Hey, I live in the desert, so if anything, I'm a sand person.
You are.
Like
you dirty little sand people, you.
You're obviously an import. You are entirely too white to be from.
Oh, what's the matter, Shaman? We're talking about your people.
Stop. Go ahead, Baldy, with your question.
We just said I'm not.
So,
anyway.
Jed, do you know that full battery is denser than an empty battery?
Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, and the only thing that's done is it's discharged.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that might be a good time to bring up a correction. Something I said in the debate that's not true, that someone actually pointed out to me in my live chat, is that when you burn wood, you're not actually creating any energy because you're not transforming any matter into energy. When you burn a log, if you take all the matter of the ashes that's left over and the smoke particles that went into the air and combine them all back together, it's the same exact mass as the wood when you started. So there's no transfer of energy when you burn things whatsoever. The only way that we can transform matter into energy is through nuclear fusion and fission.
So that is absolutely wrong.
That's retarded.
That's absolutely wrong. When you burn the wood, what's actually burning is the hydrogen particles. The oxygen particles are grabbing that carbon, this is your smoke, and pulling the carbon away. And this is what allows the chemical reaction to continue, which is the fire releasing that. The thing that's burning is the hydrogen, which you are absolutely losing hydrogen.
Yeah, because you can't just burn a log, put it in a glass box, and then once it's done burning, put it all back together. It's the same thing. Or just weigh the box. How about that? Burn and then weigh the box. It doesn't make sense.
That's just what I mean. I'm no physicist, so that's
someone in your chat wrote that.
That's organic chemistry, bro.
I looked it up
I'm also not a
on the old Googles, and that's what it said.
But I am an organic chemist, so
okay. Well, I'll take your word for it. Sure. Just want to offer a correction for something I thought I was wrong.
Why don't you dox the person who wrote that in your chat to all of us?
And
since I'm taking notes, who wrote that? Who told you that lie? I'm gonna. It's an A. By the way, it was a theist tricking you, Jed. You have a bunch of Christians in your chat trying to make you look bad.
And at some point, Omar and I are gonna have to get into it about why he thinks the sun is masculine and the moon is feminine. That makes zero sense.
Well, okay, father, son, mother, moon, got it. But we have our Balderson. We have to do our thing still. And then, by the way, I'm not traveling for the next at least week, so I'm here. I'm grounded.
I mean, the sun. What's the first physical sign of the sun in the morning for you?
What's the what?
First physical sign of the sun's interaction with you in the morning.
The first physical. You mean seeing it, or are you talking about the rays, the heat? What are we talking about?
Just your body interacting with the sun before you even get up. Usually,
I don't get up. I get the sun's fully
risen.
The
old morning wood. The old morning wood. Is a guy doing that for you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
I stay up. No, I do my sexual rituals in the moonlight, and then I sleep during the sun, and then I wake up.
We don't want to hear about the rituals. I
wasn't. But only when
I'm just. I was
way too far, Omar. Way too far.
Yeah, sorry. Rituals. I was trying to be polite. There's no actual.
And then conversely, where the moon controls the feminine cycles and affects the feminine because that's the masculine. Like with animals, if you keep the herd separate, as soon as the females get within smelling distance of a male, they'll ovulate right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not. Yeah, but the correlation of the father, son, and mother moon concept, masculine and feminine, between those two deities to the child of Earth that argument is not gonna be won because goats like to fuck in the daylight.
Ghosts? Did you say
goats?
Goats.
Or moonlight.
That changes the whole
topic.
See,
you know that the moon's out
one animal alone,
right? When it's out, the moon's out in the day half the time. You know that, right?
Yeah, of course.
This seems all kind of pointless because what we're talking about is metaphor. The sun and the moon are not actually men and women.
No, they have a masculine and a feminine energy, you know, in the way that they
we're not
interact
actually,
with you,
yeah,
and the way they interact with things. Like with plants, at night the moon's oils come out, and it's the more feminine aspect, and then during the day everything becomes more salty, which is your masculine aspect, and all the oil cooks off. This is why, like in the morning.
Which is alchemy that he doesn't.
This is real basic. This is why in the morning
you
when
said
the
when the moon's oils come
smells.
out. I didn't know the moon has oil.
The moon brings. I listen carefully. The moon causes the oils to come out in the plant. It's causing that reaction. And this is what I said. I said the moon is not, whether you want to say it's a man or not, it's causing this feminine reaction in the way it reacts to things.
Causes the ladies to get oily.
The oils come out.
Well, that's good enough. Let's get it on. Everybody's impatient. Let's get it on.
All right. right. Mr. Spin, I'm going to go ahead and let you ask your question. While you're asking your question, I'm going to go ahead and kick off the gauntlet. So you can, if you want to be in official gauntlet mode, I'm assuming, Spin, before you start talking. Okay. Keep it clean.
I'm not answering any like racist comments tonight. I've had a great, I'm not even coming here to talk about racist.
Actually, Shaman, I was going to give you a pass. Now, since you opened thy mouth,
I'm not talking about thy, and you're full of crap. I'm making a general statement. I'm not into racial debates tonight. That's all I said. So
neither am I.
Your guilty conscience jumped in there and thought I was talking about you. It says more about you.
I mean, I live rent free in your head. I know.
Confessions through projections, buddy. Continue.
I mean, I know I live rent free in your head. It's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have a question, Spin?
I actually do. It's for the flying spaghetti Italian up there. Non-Italian, that is. So you said something in a chat that only we can see. So I'm going to lead up to it. I'm going to ease right into this for you. Okay. So do you believe in Adam and Eve?
No, definitely not.
Oh, okay. So you then would agree you believe in Adam and Steve?
I'm convinced of the theory of evolution. So there was no first two humans that were magically created by a god in the Garden of Eden.
Oh, so then you would also agree that Steve can become Genevieve.
Yeah, I'm all for trans rights. You know, a lot of people are trans bigots. And if someone who was born as a male wants to identify as a woman, I've got no problem.
He believes trans women are women.
Yeah, I stand by that.
You said it.
Yeah, trans women are women.
Do you understand that it is? Do you believe in biology?
Hold on. He made this statement back in the private chat, right?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it.
I never heard this at all.
I don't want to go down a trans route.
Can they date? Can they?
We're not.
Hold on. Okay, we pick really great topics for a reason. And we do that so that we don't go down these rabbit holes of weird shit that we don't want to talk about that night, right? So stay on the topic of does God exist and something that emulates that, please. And before you go, I would like to tell everyone, if you are watching over on the Raging Tomato on YouTube, I'm officially rating you over to the Gauntlet. That's just my other channel. You're going to go watch from over there to continue the show. We're going to shut this one down. We're going to move over, and there's a lot of reasons why we do that. And this is one of them. All right. So either catch the raid or the link. I dropped it into the chat. We'll catch you over there on the other side.